Testing 1, 2, 3. All right, we seem to have sound. That's good. All right, we have YouTube up and running. Let's see if we can get. Whoops, I got volume here somewhere. We don't want that. There we go. Hello, good morning, friends. Hope you're all well. My name's Dan. Beautiful Saturday to you. This is Daily Art Adventure number 882. Read it and weep. I don't know why you would weep, but anyway. All right, I have 6 portraits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 portraits. Yep. All in various stages of development. Well, that's not exactly true. They're all, I should say, that was really not. They're all pretty close to being finished. So let's zoom right in here where you can see what's going on. All right, and I'm seeing all of these. It's Saturday morning. I haven't started painting yet. So I'm seeing all of these with fresh eyes, which is always good. And because my eyes are fresh, I'm seeing things instantly. Now, this is not a big thing, but it's a little thing that I didn't catch before. Her hair actually comes down more like that. There we go. So as you might know, if you've been watching me the last couple of days, I've been enjoying making my edits, so to speak, with pencil, so that it talks to me and says, this is a fix, this is a fix, this is an edit. I'm very close to finished on Holly, this lovely young lady. All right, now let me talk to you about, again, what it's like to look at a portrait. And at this point, here's the way not the professional artist, portrait artist brain thinks, but just stepping out of that into my ordinary human. I look at her and I say, okay, it looks like, first of all, something's not quite right with her eyelashes. I'll have to revisit that. And her nose looks like it's a little flared. Okay, so that's what I mean by non-artist language. That's ordinary people person language. Okay, hang on. We seem to have lost Facebook for a moment. Let's wait till Facebook comes back up and is running. Oh my goodness. Okay, we just lost connection with our camera, which the camera itself crashed. Okay, gang, I'm going to leave a message. Bear with me just a minute, Facebook people. Hang on just a second. I'm saying... And if I don't get, if Facebook keeps crashing, I'm going to crash it. All right, so in my ordinary non-artist language, I would say something like, it looks like her nose is flared a little bit. That's the way a non-artist talk, a non-portrait artist, a non-portrait person mentions anatomy. Okay, oh, that is so sad and quite irritating. We are ending. Hang on. Hang on. Go to... All right, so that ends that. We are turning off all Facebook stuff. That is so irritating. All right, and then YouTube people are being patient while I mess with all that. All right, again, let's try to get undistracted here. My non-artist language, first of all, non-artists use ordinary anatomical language, such as, I said, nostril. I said, this is non-artist talk. It looks like her nostril is flaring. Now let me step back into my artist mind and artist verbiage and ask myself, okay, why, what is it that makes it look like her nostril is flared? So now I'm in my brain, my artist brain, and I'm making very specific technical comparisons, and I'll make references to marks on my canvas that either need to move up, down, left, or right, or variations thereof, right? All right, so I'm looking at it and say, why does it look, oh, I know, I get it now. It's because the top of this mark right here, the top of that mark goes a little too high and a little too long. So I'm going to try to mix up the color that's right there. I'm using, of course, this infuriatingly small, tiny little brush, but it's what needs to be done for this kind of stuff, right? Now let's see. Oh yeah, it doesn't look like her nostrils flared anymore. Right? Now, let me step back into my ordinary, non-artist, ordinary human being mind and verbiage just for a second. And the next thing I look like, it's like her top lip looks like she's, I don't know how to say this, so hang on. I'm just going to point you at me for a second. It's as if her top lip is going too much this way. I don't know if you can see that. It's like, it's pursed. That's what it is. She looks as though her top lip is pursed, tensed. Do you see what I mean? I'm trying to act it out. Okay. So again, that's my non-artist language. But if I want to correct it, then I have to step back into my artist language and say, okay, wait. So there's something about her top lip that's not right. That verbiage that I just used, it looks like her top lip is pursed, you have to understand, is worthless to the portrait painter. Worse than worthless, because it sends you off in a dead end, cul-de-sac of stuff. Okay, so what I do have to do now is look again very analytically, very carefully at, okay, so there's something wrong with the top lip, but I don't know what it is. So I look at it and go, what's the difference? Oh, I see what it is. I've got this part of her lip, the foremost front of her top lip is dark red, and over here it fades to nearly to white. It's light red fading to white. So I'm going to start with light red, otherwise known as pink, of course. And cover up this dark stuff a little bit. Oh my goodness, she looks better already. I don't mean better like more good looking. That's not what I mean. That's not a portrait artist concern normally. What I mean is she looks more like herself. Okay, so please, she looks better already. Now I'm mixing up a tiny bit of white with a dirty brush, quote unquote dirty brush, so it's a warm white now, because I just had pink on it, and I'm gonna lighten that even more. Woohoo! Now while I'm looking real close at her top lip here, I'm seeing, oh, wait a minute. Also, in addition to that, there's supposed to be a little bit more right above her top lip. there's supposed to be a little tiny ridge of lightness, light pink right there. And I have a tiny bit of it, but I don't have enough of it. So let's add a tiny ridge of light pink. And this is a good time to put on 2 pairs of glasses. I know this is crazy, but it really does help. All right, so that was simple enough. So let me back up now and look at her again and say, I want to get back to her eye in a minute, but before I do that, there's something about her mouth. Aha, I know what it is. Hang on. I know what's wrong with her mouth. Couple things, actually. Man, it's so nice to see what's wrong. It's so good. And I don't know if you guys can see this. I mean, you have to be watching this on a big screen. But see her top lip, the bottom of her top lip over here, it gets very thin. Oh my goodness. I've got it too wide and too dark. And between those two issues, the too dark is actually even more critical than the even more off, or more, what's the word, erroneous, more incorrect than the too dark, than the too wide. But I'm going to fix the wideness first. So yes, it looks to me like if I simply drag her skin tone down further, covering up some of that dark edge, blending it just a little bit. You know, the final thing I'm going to do is mix up, but let me show you my palette real quick. Right before I started today, I cleaned my palette all off, and I just made this quick assortment of flesh tones, just arbitrary. Now, very few of these will actually be perfect for the painting, but what this allows me to do is just mix a couple of these together. So I don't have to spend a lot of time then. Hang on, I'll get you right here. I don't have to waste a lot of time mixing from scratch, if you will, because I've got those batches already ready to go. All right, so a medium dark pink. To get rid of that dark edge at the top of the mouth. Now let's look at that. Let's look at that. Oh. Almost. Almost. Now that I did that, I see that the back end of her mouth, the openness needs to be open a little bit. Now thankfully I mixed up some dark brown red over here earlier. So again, boy, it's kind of crazy doing portraits this size, first of all. Now let's look at that. Yeah, that looks good. Whew. All right, now I'm still making changes. The next thing that I see is, again, not so much a drawing as if a line is in the right place, but really a values issue. It feels here as though her mouth is underneath her teeth is open too wide. Yet when I look at the photo, I go, no, it's not. It's really not open too wide. And then after a while, I say, oh, I get what it is. The space between her teeth and the top of her bottom lip, I've got it too dark. I've got it too black over here. So it's making it yell, you know, show up too much. So I've got some medium dark, dirty pink color over here that's lighter than what I had earlier. Whew. And the next thing is, again, not that I've got a drawing line out of place. I've got a values issue. Again, especially her eye tooth. in my painting is just a little bit too dark, and it doesn't intersect in the photograph. Her eye tooth definitely connects with the top of her bottom lip. All right, so let's come in here again. Tiny brush, insane kind of painting, but it's got to be done. If you're doing a portrait this size, you just don't have any choice but to do some goofy painting like this, and make sure it connects to her bottom lip. Now the next, the next question is one of those exaggerated beauty factors. Okay, there's a lot of beauty factors, of course, a lot of things that go into making a human face and a female human face appear beautiful. Big eyes, large eyelashes, nice color, blah, 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 and white teeth. And even though I think the color of her teeth is accurate, I'm going to exaggerate just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit. So in other words, I'm exaggerating, again, a beauty factor. I'm taking her teeth and making them, you know, if her teeth are going to be just a little too light or a little too dark, which do I want? If I'm going to err one way or the other, which way do I want? Do I want the teeth too light or too dark? Well, you know the answer, don't you? You want them slightly too light. You don't want, again, a beauty, I'm calling it a beauty factor. You don't want it underdone. If anything, you want it overdone, not underdone. All right, so I'm done, I think, all the way down her face. I've made several little changes, and that really does look like her. Hallelujah. All right, now, just a tiny thing, and it's her eyelashes aren't quite right. And I think that they don't come down quite far enough. Now, one caution here that I'm seeing already, and I'm gonna have to mix up a new color for this. In the photograph, her eyelashes are catching some of the light, and so they're not, as someone carelessly might make them too dark, thinking, you know, well, eyelashes are black. I mean, her eyelashes are probably not black, but she's wearing mascara, blah, blah, you know, the way typical fashion woman is in our culture, wearing dark mascara. So I'm being careful here to mix up a dark brown, but not black. All right, back to the ridiculous 2 pairs of glasses at the same time. Yeah, and it's just right here, it comes down a tiny bit further. I'm going to add 1/100 of an inch to her other eyelashes. I'm going to turn this eyelash up just a scrunch, turning up at the end. Whew. One more change. When I modified her mouth a while ago, I reintroduced a darkness into her top lip that is not quite accurate. And it's because now I need to make her tooth, how I need to fix that is by making her tooth, her last tooth in her mouth, which of course is not at all white, right? Because it's in quite considerable shade. So I'm mixing up a medium gray, and I need to push that up into the lip color. Whew. Now, and once again, here's the way portraits work. One thing turns into another. So I'm going to lighten the front edge of that tooth again a little bit more. Whew. All right, now I'm going to fix her hair, which is the least of my concerns, if you will, the least of my worries. But this up here that I noticed, or maybe you, if you were with me right at the beginning, I went, oh, wait a minute. That doesn't impact her likeness very much, but maybe ever so slightly. So let's do, plus, you know, I like the way her hair looks in the photograph, of course, so I'm just going to pull that down like that. And while I've got this color on my brushes, I'm just going to go ahead and, by the way, for what it's worth, the color on my brushes right now for blonde hair is, my default color is yellow ochre with white. This happens to be, this time, happens to be yellow ochre mixed with Naples yellow. And again, I'm not sure that's one that you really need to take notes on. Somebody asked me yesterday, I missed their comment, somebody asked me, so what color do you use for the whites of the eyes? Or it was the teeth, I don't know, one of those, I don't remember which one. And the answer is, only your eye will tell. You can't make up a recipe. It's not a matter of recipe following. And if you laminate your painting, your print, the way I have here, you can actually put a dab of paint on your on the plastic, on the laminated painting there, to see if you're close. Okay, just now, I'm assuming that you're understanding here that I'm working on 6 portraits all at the same time. And if you've missed, hello Jane, good to have you on board. We've missed you all week. Well, you haven't said anything anyway. Oh, Jane says, I think the line from the bridge of the nose to the tip of the nose is too curved and short. Oh no, don't say that. You might be right. Too curved. Could it be too short? Yeah, it could be. Doggone it, where were you yesterday, Jane, when I was... Oh my, this makes me nervous. Okay. Should that nose go a little bit longer? I'm afraid you're right. I really am afraid that you're right, and I don't like that. So now I'm moving her nostril completely. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. I hope I'm not just being overly influenced by you, Jane, but you pointed out something in this length of nose. I took another look and said, oh no, I think you might be right. All right, the rest of you, be quiet. I am kidding, I really am. But no, it's a little distressing to get that far along and then think perhaps you've messed up. All right, now still with my glasses on, I have to redraw, re-render her nostril, mixing up a dark red Now we can't see the bottom of her nose, can we? So I'm going to have to come up with some other color. Well, here's what I have to do. Okay, I was starting to say just before Jane so rudely interrupted me with a cold splash of reality. I'm picking on you, Jane, I really am. I've got 6 portraits going here, and on all of them, this is not the only way to do portraits by any means, but on all of them, I have made the decision, early on, I made the decision to perfect the face before I started launching into all the background. It's one way to do portraits. I remember hearing Drew Blair many years ago defend this this approach. He said, do the hardest part first. And the hardest part, of course, is always the face, because you don't want to do a bunch of work on everything else and then save the hard part till last, for a number of reasons. One, if you finish all the background then really screw up on the face, well, then you've really screwed up. But anyway, so I still have all of the backgrounds to do, but as you probably can guess, the backgrounds on all of these are going to be considerably more abstract than the faces, right? The faces are far more literal and accurate than, so of course shouldn't take nearly as long, of course. Plus there's just, it's nice to have the, you know, sigh of relief kind of time. When you have the faces done. Yeah, thanks for the apology, Jane. It only hurts because it's true. I reserve the right to disagree with any of the comments of anybody, but well, you said it, and then it made me look again, and it's like, no, I think you're right. I'm still not getting the bottom of the nose to show up, though, so bear with me just a minute. I think I'm going to have to get away from the photograph just a little bit and make the very bottom edge of her nose slightly darker pink, which logically makes sense. Right? Our mind goes, oh yeah, shade. But anyway, in the photograph, it's actually reflecting a lot, probably off her dress, and it's actually quite light. Now I've got, she's got a pointed nose. Oh, if you guys can even see it. I wouldn't be able to see it if I wasn't wearing 2 pairs of glasses. That's the height. Aren't you glad there's no young people in the room to point and laugh? Whew. All right. Jane, don't say anything. I think I'm kidding. I'm mostly kidding. All right. Whew. Yeah, she is a beautiful young bride. Oh, no. Hang on. I just saw something. Right then with that last. All right, back at it. It's not a terribly difficult thing. Yes, there's no question. Her chin is too far forward right here. And by, probably a 64th of an inch, if that makes any sense to you. But in other words, a tiny, tiny, tiny amount. But I can see it. I think I want to do this left-handed. That was a pretty crude stroke. I'm not going to leave it that way. I'm just... Okay, now I'm going to go back the other way. By the way, you might be surprised how often this exact thing happens. If you have to move a line and move it one way and then move it back the other. You know what? Okay, you guys need to see this anyway. If you haven't seen it already, this is a good... this irritates me. I don't like to have to do this late in the game, but here I am. There is, and I know you can't see it, but still can't see it. There's a little tiny bump right there. Yeah, it went all the way down to the gesso. So it was either a bump on the canvas fabric itself or a bump in the gesso. And it was right on that seam, right on that line, right on the edge of her chin, and was really getting in the way. So the trick there I used, I didn't show you, I didn't say anything about it. Now I wish I had it. Okay, tell you what. I'm going to put it on on a handle. It's an X-Acto knife. This is I try to keep one of these at all of my easels. It's a curved blade. You see, that's very important. A straight blade wouldn't work at all. You want it curved so it doesn't dig into the surface of the canvas. So that's just one more piece of equipment you have to have, in my opinion, if you want to do super realistic paintings. Okay. I've got the reflection, the highlight on her chin down here comes too far back into her face. I'm cutting down the highlight a little bit. And now that I've done that, I say, okay, one thing leads to another. There is a very slight, very slight dark edge to the bottom of her bottom lip. Yeah. All right, I'm going to call that good enough. Of course, next time I look at it, of course, goes without saying, next time I look at it, I'll be looking at it with fresh eyes, and there's, I'd say, about a 50-50 chance that I'll see something next time I look. Okay, I'm going to save it, though, for when I have fresh eyes. Let's go on to the next one. Well, I think I can dispatch with this one pretty quickly. So let's pull this up. The little girl, the unnamed girl on the beach. And her photograph must be around here somewhere. Here it is. Now in this particular painting, I actually did most of the background. I like most of what I've got here. I think it's simply I'm a little too dark here and there, a little too contrasty. Real easy, dumb mistake for me and everybody else, frankly, to make. Mark Carder says it's the most common mistake he sees on early portrait painters is over contrast. And I believe that's true of me as well. One of my favorite failings, besetting sins. Now, once again, as always, now that I'm looking, I'm seeing more. Nothing to do but get to it. Her forehead's a little too low, so I'm going to raise her hair. But then her hair's too low. But now I've just made the whole girl taller, and is that right? Or should I lower her face instead of raising her head? I'm thinking, well, I'm going to move the top of her head real quickly and see if it looks atrocious. And if it does, then I'll move her back. I mean, I'll wipe off what I've done. Let's just see, is she going to look top heavy? By that I mean the top of her head. No, I think I can get away with that, I think. And then oh, that wasn't so bad, except that it fell in my wet paint down here. So hang on just a second. It's a mess. Okay. Now back to a shadow under her hair. Hang on just a second. I don't like this song. There's someplace here I can take it off my playlist, but I can't find it, so never mind. I'll just skip to the next one. If there's a piece of music that suddenly gets my attention, it's probably not a good piece of music. I'm typically playing stuff that I can ignore. We talked about this the other day, about whether playing music in the background helps you paint better. And someone brought up the research that has been done, and I tend to agree with it, that many artists think they paint better with music, but somebody's actually done research. I remember David, all of a sudden his name slips. It'll come back to me in a second. Anyway, he told me about this research years ago. And I generally agree with it, but then my protest is I don't think I listen to have music on for the same reason that many people do. It's there for me to ignore, not for me to, it's not there to pump me up, rev me up, energize me. It's quite the opposite. And it's there more than half for you guys than it is for me. And I know you can only hear it as a whisper, but it makes the space here feel a little less empty if there's some sound going on behind me. When I'm not broadcasting, I'm not listening to music. I'm listening to talking, actually. More or less intellectual or academic talking. Okay, I think that's good enough. Let's go to the other extreme now, from small to huge. This is the largest face that I've done in the last 2 or 3 weeks, however long I've been doing this. By the way, if you want me to do your portrait, let me know. I'm still doing this ridiculous $350. Just for what it's worth, my normal price for a portrait is $1,250, which is pretty cheap, but $350 is crazy. Uncle's sitting this one up. All right, I tell you what. One of you, forget who it was, the other day, a couple days ago, said, "Would you show us what it is that you do with Photoshop. So this might be a good time to do that. So bear with me while I first of all turn you around. Oops, I can turn this camera off because we're not using it. Bear with me again. You get to see all my messes on all different sides. All right, hang on. Moving some extension cords around. Plugging in the camera. So it does, that will die in about 15 minutes or 20 minutes if it's not plugged in. Now moving my, this is going to be a little tricky. Bear with me. Moving my control stand. That lets me see your chats and so forth. All right, now bringing the painting over. Let's show you, let me show you, there's several things I can do with Photoshop to get the job done. I'm going to turn my music down a little bit since I'm over here now. All right, I'm going to open, this is Nancy, is this lady's name. Let's find Nancy in here. There she is. Okay, you with me? So here's some of the tricks that I can employ to get things right. First of all, I'm going to set this down. I don't need that for the moment. And let's measure this straight this way from the peak of her forehead there, which I don't know that that's perfectly correct, right? So that's just a maybe, to the bottom of her crease of her jawline chin here is 7 5/8 inches. Okay, so that's the size of my painting. What I'm going to try to do, and it's going to take me probably several tries to get it right, I want to print out a copy, a copy of her photograph. That's exactly 7 5/8 inches. So can you see what I'm doing here? I don't know how good the vision is. I'll turn it your way just a little bit more. All right, so I'm dragging down a guideline. Let me talk about Photoshop just for a minute. The whole world has changed, of course, like everything else. Okay, 7 5/8. Let me pause. In the olden days, you would buy a DVD that had Photoshop 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on it. You would take it, stick it in your computer, blah, 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 blah. Okay? Don't do that anymore. It's all by prescription. That, by the way, that Photoshop CD cost you $600, $700, or $800. Okay? Nowadays, you can't buy it on CD. I don't think you can buy it on CD at all. You have to buy a subscription online. You pay Apple. For me, it's I think $20 a month, or something like that. I can't remember. It might be less than that. It might, because I think it's available for $10 a month. And I think I'm speaking old historically when I say $20 a month. But be that as it may, I love it. I like it. It updates you automatically with the latest, greatest Photoshop. And all right, so again, I'm forgetting now. 7 5/8. My painting is 7 5/8. I'm not measuring this. And right now, this image is 6 1/4. So you can do that with a ruler and a calculator if you want. You can just use a ruler and a calculator. But if you have a proportion wheel, it says here the size of the original. I'm going to call the painting the original. and it was, I keep 7 5/8, right? Yep, 7 5/8, right there, down to 6 1/4. So 7 5/8 down to 6 1/4. That tells me it's 82%. So now I'm going to go into image size. Over here, percent, 82. Boom, boom, done. Now let's again adjust these lines. Let's see if it's 80% now. So I'm dragging my ruler down to right there, and I went the wrong way. That's crazy. I went the wrong way. The size of the size. I want to go the other way around. This is 6 1/4. See, boy, that was dumb, wasn't it? Not that I would ever do anything that dumb. 6 1/4 up to 7 5/8. I don't want to go smaller. I want this to get bigger. 6 1/4 up to 7 5/8 is 122%. All right, back to size again. It's already on percentage 122. All right, let's try that. So what I'm doing right now is some really radical, what I used to call cheating. Okay, I've turned over a new leaf. By the way, you guys can thank my new friend Sydney in Texas for painting a picture for me that makes me realize that, oh, I shouldn't use the word cheating. It's long, I mean, I won't repeat everything he said, but I'm going to call it tools and tricks, mechanical methods, something like that. All right, so even though the math was 122%, this is now saying that it is now 7 7/8. So it's considerably much too big. So I'm going to, this is too big now. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say 95% and measure it again. Okay, so this is all part of the business. Now it says it's 7 1/4. It's a little bit too small. So I'm going to go 102%. I know I'm going too fast for you to follow everything. All right, now it tells me that this is 7 5/8 inches. All right, so I'm going to copy this, copy, and then make a new document. It'll come up in a second. My computer's a little bit old and slow. So it says new document, the size of the clipboard, that is yes. And then I paste that there, and now I'm going to do a print, and just because, just one copy, print, and I'm going to do it at draft quality, real low quality. All right, ready, set, go. Right, that shouldn't take too long. If everything works well, bear with me here for a minute. You can stare out my window. There's my old trumpet lamp that I made when I was in college from an old trumpet. Now, it wasn't my trumpet, but anyway, I've had that for 45 years or more. All right, so it's coming off my printer. Here's the big reveal. Oh, it's coming out on the wrong way on the paper, but that's all right. I'm not. All right, that is to say my paper's the wrong way, but okay. Here's one way we can test and see, get rid of my Superman X-ray glasses and all my other measuring devices. I'm going to turn on this light table, turn off these lights. I'm going to lay, but that won't work. I'm not trying to match that. I'm trying to match this. Can I see anything? I doubt it. No, I can't. Okay, that won't work. Never mind. I'm just full of accidentals today. But I want to see if this is the same size. and I'm going to get more specific here in just, boy, it's really close. Really, really, really close to the right size. I'm going to print out one more of those with the paper going the right direction this time. And I'm going to print out, let me think. No, draft quality is good enough. All right, I'm going to get even more. I'm thinking it's the right size. We'll find out better in just a second. So this whole thing, Photoshop, printing, could go under the rubric, under the title of super duper photomechanical checking, if you will. I know you guys were staring off into space for several minutes there. Sorry about that. I know I can move you guys here, I believe, to a more advantageous perch. Bear with me just a minute while I block your vision. All right, you can look straight down at my drawing table. What's next? Here's what's next, Uncle. Wow, Mark Carter, $3,000 in 6 days? Dang. It does no good to compare oneself to other humanoid creatures, does it? Just doesn't do you any good at all. Okay, let me see. I do need some tape, so I don't want this to budge at all while I'm tracing. Now, I've tried a number of things. I've tried many things. Where printing directly onto plastic, superimposing the images in Photoshop, and frankly, just none of that really works very well. So this is the best thing I've found. So it's kind of combining, isn't it? Kind of combining high tech and very low tech at the same time. So plain old transparency acetate sheet. So is all this kind of stuff legal? The answer is of course, of course, of course. Of course it's legal. But, as I always say, but you just have to remember that if you want your drawing skills to increase rather than shrink, you don't want to rely on this kind of stuff, at least initially. So again, that what you see me doing is exactly what I do, which is give the old college try. Do the best you can without any tracing, if you can. Do the best you can without any tracing, and then begin to employ whatever cheater tricks are necessary to get the job done. Now, frankly, I'm a little worried about what I'm going to see, because right at the moment, I feel like in my painting I have a pretty good likeness of Nancy, but yeah, frankly, I'm afraid that when I slap this down, I'm going to find a whole host of things that are not quite right. And it'll be weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth kind of moment. But better to weep and wail and gnash my teeth now than to end up with a portrait that really is not perfect. By the way, Mark Carter, he does, and if I remember right, and I've watched him do it, he does an awful lot of measuring onto his canvas with, I can't remember what, calipers or ruler. I think proportional divider kind of things. And that's so he starts out with quite a bit of serious cheating. I'm not criticizing him, believe me. In fact, if anything, okay, I'm giving you guys permission. If Mark Carter can do it, so can you. I might as well do the top of her head since it's here. All right, here we go. The moment of truth. Da, 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 da. Whoops, my camera just turned off, and I wonder why. Oh, it was my old camera. Whew. Okay, it's the one that's not being used. All right, are you ready? You guys are ready. You're ready to laugh at me. All right, here we go. Yeah, it's okay. Wait. If I measure, so you have to decide what you want to line up. If I go this way, her eyes, that just means my that could mean this is too small, but I've got the length of her head. Okay, hairline, eyebrows, nose. Oh, doggone it. Look how far off I am on that. Look at how, the worst thing of all is her mouth. Oh my goodness. Well, what happens if I line it up with her mouth then? Oh, I've rendered her mouth perfectly. Well, almost. Just at the wrong angle. Oh, does that hurt? Oh my goodness. It's just as I feared, weeping, wailing, and gnashing of teeth. Oh my goodness. Now, the print is exactly the right size from crown to chin. If I made this print slightly larger, would I be, it would make that measurement a little short, but it might get closer in other ways. Okay, so wait a minute. Can I see it now? Let's just see if I can see it. I'm just going to stand up so I can. So her mouth needs to be tilted this way. Now, can I look at okay, good news, bad news, good news, bad news. I can see it. Now that I know that it's wrong, I can say, oh yeah, doggone it, this mouth needs to go this way. Bear with me though, I am going to do one more print. So if I line up crown, eye, cheek, and chin, all that comes out right, but hang on just a second. I'm going to print one more. I'm going to change the size of this. Let's say 103%. That might be a little bit generous, but let's do it anyway. And let's print off another copy and see. So I'll keep that. I think I've got another piece of acetate over here somewhere. Well, I know I have one somewhere. The question is, can I put my hands right on it? That is the question. Yeah. Oh. The groan of anguish. In case you're wondering what that groan is. The groan of, darn it. So you can see, and I would say that's a pretty good description of where I'm at as a portrait painter. You can tell who this is. Yeah, but at the same time, something in your brain goes, yeah, but something's not exactly, believe me, something was doing that in my brain, so I'm not terribly surprised, unfortunately not terribly surprised that I'm off because my brain is going, yeah, I don't know, something doesn't look quite right. Now, do I do this kind of checking always? No, I don't, because they're sometimes, I would say about 40% of the time, that's my story and I'm sticking with it, about 40% of the time, I feel like I've got a perfect likeness. So I didn't feel that way on Nancy here. Understand? I felt like, again, it was typical of me. You could tell who it is. I'm a good enough portrait painter to capture a likeness. And I even did some cheating on her already. Cheating, quote, sorry. I try to start using different terminology. I already did some mechanical means, some technical tips. I did some measuring on her already, right? You might have seen me doing that yesterday. So even with using mechanical means or technical tricks, I'm still this far off. I'm just making a little bit of indicator with where her teeth. One of the things I'm sure you're seeing here is that this photograph is so fuzzy. I did dialogue with Nancy early on about, can you come up with, and she was not able to come up with a better photograph. She didn't know how, really. Most people are not photographers, so they don't know how to do things like that. I had the option of driving to her house and picking up the original, and finally decided to forbear to do that. All right, now this is slightly larger. Let's see if I score any better. The mouth is still going to be crooked, I know, but let's see. Oh, why did you guys let me do that? I completely forgot to trace her second eye. Don't get in too big a hurry, Mr. Nelson. And again, I know I'm repeating myself, but some of you say, well, if you're going to end up doing this much technical tricks, mechanical methods, why don't you just start it? And I don't have to answer that, do it, because you guys know. The answer is because I want my skills to go up, not down. All right, so now I'm looking at slightly larger print. And you know what? Some good news here, some good news. If I am much closer, well, the nose is pretty bad. Be that as it may, this size, whoops, which one is larger here? I better keep careful track. Okay, so where do I go from here? Well, I'll show you now. I'm going to transfer my cheater marks. Yeah, me big cheater. Yes, I'm using, Uncle asked a question, I'm using, the only Alkyd fast dry oil I'm using is white, is titanium white. Everything else, I just have, I try to remember to put just a touch of liquid in all my little mixtures. Sometimes I forget, and then I come back the next day and those bits are still wet. I don't like that. So here we go. This is kind of I put the tape on the wrong side, kind of, didn't I? Doesn't matter. All right. There is not, this is not a perfect method. I'm assuming you're seeing that. It's not a perfect method. It gets me close. That's about all. I am a little bit relieved though. I'm not quite as anguished as I was when I did this one and found myself off on a number of axes. But then when I blew the print up a little larger, I found like, oh, good. Whew, okay, her mouth is much, much closer. Some of the biggest mistakes, and again, let me repeat this, and so in my defense, if you will, as if I need to defend myself. I feel, every time I uncover my gross errors like this, my consolation, one consolation is, okay, but take note, be careful to register what mistakes did I make, because there's a very good possibility that the one mistake that I made this time, oh, by the way, I knew this bottom lip was too thin, and I had already made a pencil mark to that end, so that's good. When I came in and saw this with fresh eyes this morning, I said, ooh, bottom lip needs to be thicker, and indeed, I was right, almost 1/8 of an inch, which is quite a bit, even on a portrait this large. Ooh, teeth. It's got some real offness in my teeth here. And the bottom of her bottom lip has some real corrections as well. So once again, I'm using pencils here because I've discovered that, first of all, I can do what I'm doing here, flip the plastic. If I was using paint, this would be quickly become quite the mess, wouldn't it? But more importantly, the pencil marks tell me that it's a correction. I know which marks to believe. Now, don't believe the paint that I made, marks that are here. Believe the pencil marks. Does that make sense? So that's a little trick that I've really picked up on in the last couple of weeks. Oh, the pencils are good for making corrections because they stand out a little bit. What? Oh, I get it. I said the eyebrow doesn't come all the way over there. Sit back, point it at me for a minute, see. All right, she is going to be so beautiful. Whoops, shoulder a little high right there. And this shoulder a little low. Did I finish my sentence? Keep track, so to speak, keep mental note of what your mistakes tend to be, because I think that we tend to make similar mistakes repeatedly. As we tend to repeat our mistakes. So in this case, what was the biggest one? I don't know, bottom of that edge of nose. Chin a little bit short. I don't know if that's typical of me or not, but I did this time. All right. Whew. Well, it could have been worse, I guess. It was worse at first, and then on second printing, if you will, I came up not feeling quite so bad about myself. Sorry, I'm making you all seasick, twirling you around here. Sorry about that. And I'll have you pointing at the painting in a minute, I promise. Now, as far as I know, I can still work from this photograph. Oh, I sure would like to have it right here. I don't know if there's any way I can get, whoops, or I could just face plant it in my wet paint. That's another option. Not a very good option, really. Now I'm cleaning stuff up over here. I'm going to have to find that guy on YouTube. I think this was a long time ago, early in YouTube days, when we were all just learning about it. And there was this guy that does fishing shows. Maybe you could look him up just from that. Fishing show bloopers. And all of his, like mine, all of his bloopers were completely accidental. It wasn't on purpose at all. And it was hilarious. I mean, he fell out of the boat like every other episode, and would come up sputtering and spewing and cussing. Oh, it was so funny. It was only funny because it was a real accident. Anyway, that's a little bit like me here. I'm feeling. Suddenly my heart goes out to this guy. That guy, whoever he was. Well, hello. There's a new name, Indranil Biswas. What's the use in this kind of painting? Just waste of money and time and energy. I guess. I hope you're kidding. I don't really know what that means. I am assuming you are because you said ha ha ha. Exactly. Like we have cameras, right? We have cameras to do this stuff, right? Of course. Why don't we just use a camera? I'm not even, I presume I don't need to answer that. Anyway, welcome. Glad to have you on board. Okay, I'm going to now begin making dark paint marks on top of my pencil lines because I don't really want pencil lines showing on my finished painting, right? So I'm just going to smudge them all a little bit. So you replace the cement pencil line with a great big fat dark paint line. Okay, not really. We're gonna smooth that out a little bit here real quick. Okay, should I have seen that my chin was too short? Of course, I feel like I should have seen all of my mistakes. Did I? Tragically, no, I did not. That's how good I am. That's how good I ain't. If you go to my, if you want to see what a finished portrait looks like, again, because I think most people have no idea, no idea whatsoever. They watch these people on YouTube that do super hyper realistic stuff, you know, stroke for stroke, perfect for perfect. And I'm not saying there aren't some people who are a lot better than I am. Of course there are. But there's a lot of stuff that's on the internet that is very deceiving because you can't see that the person is doing it on Photoshop and he's tracing, you know, the magazine picture often while with his stylus, right? With his, on his pad. What's this thing called? It's called a Wacom tablet. Yeah. You know, and so you get the impression that artists it just falls off the end of their pencil. And well, that might be true for some people. It's not true for very many. Anyway, so if you want to see my finished portraits, because I won't put a portrait on my website unless I'm proud of it and unless I think, no, this is good. Now, the good news is every once in a while I go through and say, as I mature, as I get better, and I say, man, I'm taking that portrait off. It doesn't make the grade, so to speak. It's not as good. And that's one of the ways I know that I'm improving, because periodically I'll take portraits that I used to think were adequate and I'll take them off because they're no longer adequate. Okay, so I've just everything I'm doing now is just sort of to begin to hide the horrible pencil marks. I'll clean off these brushes up here. think I'll just keep using these same brushes, mix up some white with it, so I'll have a nice... I haven't really even started working very hard on, move you guys, I left you out, way out in the far distance for a little, far country, didn't I, for a while. I really haven't even started working on color matching very much on this portrait. I've just been too busy just trying to get the lines in the right place. When I do start doing color matching, I'll do stuff like this. Ooh, perfect. So if you can't see, or if I can't see the mark that I just made on this laminated print, then that means I've mixed up the right color. Now, we just did a whole Photoshop thing. One thing I didn't show you in that quick demo was I already, several days ago when I started this portrait, I printed out several copies of Nancy's face until the copy that was coming off my printer was a color that I liked, that I agreed with. All right, so I skipped over that part. We didn't go over that at all. So that's already been done. And that, of course, is a process. It doesn't happen quickly or automatically, and it virtually never happens the first time. The first copy, so to speak, that comes off my printer is not the copy that it has the color that I want. So I print it off, because you can't trust your screen, of course. So you have to print off several copies, at least I have to print off several copies before I get one that I consider to be a pleasant flesh tone. And since Nancy, the woman, is not right here in my presence, all I have to work with is the photograph. And I have to, from the photograph, I have to guess what her flesh tones actually are. Does that make sense? Because she's not here. So I look, it's not that hard, I don't think. I don't think it's any kind of wonderful talent or special gifting. We know what people look like generally. And of course, people are different colors according to the room that they're in, the light they're in, the lighting that they're in. So it's not like you can say this or that person is this or that color. You can make generalizations. They have a ruddy complexion, or they have a olive complexion. I like that one. Whoever made that up, that's hilarious. Somebody with a great, significant sense of humor, I think, came up with the olive complexion label. Frankly, I think the old-fashioned, of course, which is totally politically incorrect, but fooey gablooey on political correctness, in my opinion. The old-fashioned, red and yellow, black and white. Even as a little kid, I thought that was funny. Even as a little kid, before I knew anything about racial tensions, I thought, that's funny. Black people aren't black, they're dark brown. We're not white, we're medium brown. Red, Indians are red, what? Okay, so that's pretty funny. I have a daughter-in-law who's Chinese American, and I've actually teased her a little bit. She's not one of those who can take a whole lot of teasing. Some can, some can't, but again, the freer one gets of the shackles of cultural Marxism, the more free one is to speak joyfully and lovingly. But anyway, how some people ever looked at the Asian complexion and saw yellow is really almost utterly beyond me. I honestly don't understand. What? Yellow? What? I will say this, and I have said this to her, said, your skin is, as a white person, I said the same thing to black people, quote unquote black people, especially as they get older. My goodness, black people have got the right genes for aging. Us white people, we really missed the boat, sorry, in that department. And there's no telling who I'm triggering by saying all this stuff right now, but anyway, my My Asian Chinese daughter-in-law, her complexion is just to die for. It's like, what? How did you get that? What? How did you get that? And believe me, I do understand that talking about it is politically incorrect, and politically incorrect is stupid, in my opinion, just on so many levels, just profoundly, if not evil. So, yeah, you don't even have to bother correcting me if you don't want to. The more one becomes freed, released from nascent racism. I won't say anything about intentional racism. Good grief, there's no excuse for that. But most people come out of the womb with some degree of favor for one's own tribe, so that's pretty natural. But the more you come out of that, the freer you are actually to talk freely. And America, by and large, is not at this place at all. America is trying to come out of its incipient racism, so therefore all discussion of race is off the table, which is just stupid. Did I say that was just stupid? Yeah, that's just stupid. I could go on, but I've already gotten enough people mad at me, so I'll just stop right there. Well, a lot of people deleting messages here. Took off all the paint with a sheetrock knife. Are you serious? Huh. And Indranil Biswas is maybe I'm saying something irritating. My apologies truly if I am. I am learning in the course of learning one very fascinating reality about human nature, and that is that people who are more free in their personality are a very significant irritant to people who are less free in their spirits. So I need to, that doesn't mean I'm going to rein it in completely, but I do understand that I'm a pretty free of inner tormenting voices. So I'm free to talk about stuff, and I do understand that can be irritating to people who are not quite so free. We see that a lot in the public discourse in our country right now. One of the things I'm doing right now is just getting rid of those black pencil lines. They served their purpose. Thank you very much. Now we can get rid of them. I'm going to do a quick double check. Where's my acetate? Here it is. Whew, glad I still have this so I can double check and say, wait. Oh, okay, carve a little off the top of this eye right here. No, there's no coronavirus emerging here, I promise. More like dust in the wind. All we are is. Oh, here we go. Whoa. Wait. Wow, I didn't even mark this. This whole eye needs to come down considerably. The top of it does anyway. One good thing about painting from a very fuzzy photograph like this is a very fuzzy, not ideal at all. But one good thing about it is it certainly does help you avoid overly crisp lines, which is, you know, a mistake that many of us slip into all too easily, making our portraits too sharp and crisp. When I'm doing landscapes, I often talk about the fact that it's easy for our paintings to have too many hard edges. Almost impossible for a painting to have too many soft edges, and really that is quite true of portraits as well. And you need to, I think you need to guard against that impulse of following the camera. Don't follow the camera. Let me give you another example. In fact, I'll be working a little while back when I go to the little girl on the beach. In the photograph, the horizon line, the edge of the ocean, is razor sharp. And if you're not careful, or if you're not trained, if you haven't been told this, I'm going to tell you now, don't do that. Do not paint the horizon in an ocean scene razor sharp like the photograph. Why? Why? It's that way in the photograph. Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that photographs do that you do not want to do as a painter. There's a whole bunch of things. Your goal is to do something that's much, much, much better than the photograph. Which reminds me, by the way, I just posted last night, I think, or was it this morning? I can't remember. I posted a pen and ink and watercolor sketch that I did yesterday, I think. Or was it the day before? Don't remember. It all runs together. I did a side-by-side. I'm doing this on my YouTube channel on the community page. So on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, right? You're on it right now if you're watching me. But there's a row of words when you first get onto my channel at the top. And one of them is, one is home, videos, playlist, community. Okay, so if you click on the community button, so to speak, it will take you to the place where I post still images. And any of you who are, if you're painters, if you tend to like the way I teach a little bit, you'll want to pay attention to that community page, because that's where I post. First of all, almost every painting that I finish, which is almost what I mean. Almost every painting that I do on YouTube, when it's finished, I post it there on the YouTube community page, so you can see a better image of the finished product. And I'm doing on that page, I'm doing what I wish so badly. I wish that other artists would follow suit and do what I'm doing. For instance, I saw a painting just the other day on Facebook by John Poon. I feel like I know John. We've met, we've shaken hands, he's seen my work, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't really know me, but he's taught in Raleigh several times. And I was never at a place that I could take his class. Anyway, good painter. And anyway, he posted on Facebook a painting of his from, I don't remember, some mountains, the Grand Tetons or something like that. The point being, I wish so much. It was a gorgeous painting, as are almost all of John Poon's paintings. Okay, he's one of the many. And once again, he's Chinese. Doggone it. What is it about those Chinese people? And please believe me, I understand that by saying such a thing, I'm being very politically incorrect, and I say, who the heck cares? I'm being loving and kind and generous and having fun. It does seem like the Chinese are, and the Russians, by the way, are overrepresented in the ranks of really good painters. That is so strange. Anyway, John Poon, he did a painting of a mountainscape, and I wish that he would post a photograph that he was working from, because many of us would learn so much. A gorgeous painting. I'd like to see with the photograph. I promise you, the photograph does not look, the painting does not look like the photograph. Okay, but I would love to see in what ways the photograph did not look like the painting. Anyway, I just posted there yesterday a watercolor sketch, pen and ink and watercolor sketch that I did. And I would again, hold it up as a typical example of, you don't paint the photograph, right? You should look at it and go, golly, you got that? It's kind of a North Carolina country accent, kind of a think of, you know, Barney Fife on Andy Mayberry. Golly, you should think one of your responses should be, it doesn't look anything like the photograph, right? Anyway, so if you want to see what that's like. So what I'm getting to, and you do a seascape, don't make this sea sharp edged, make it soft. Here, let me show you since I'm talking about it so much. So here's the painting I just had up here a few minutes ago, and there it is. There's the horizon line, okay, right there, and that's soft. Whereas in the photograph, it's actually razor sharp. Can you see that? So don't paint the photograph. Duh. In my our painters forum that has been going on for 12 years, we missed this month, right? For the first time in 12 or 13 years. It's just fellow painters, we just get together and share our paintings with each other, and it's very fun and informative and helpful and so forth. And if you don't have such a group in your hometown, then start one. But one of the funny, we've been together so long that we've, you know, developed our own little subculture and language. And one of the funny repeating jokes, if you will, artist jokes, visual jokes, is somebody will put up a painting and somebody in the room will say, point to some part of the painting or aspect of the painting, say, why'd you do that? And if it's somebody who's been there for a while, they don't even have to answer the question. They just roll their eyes or slap their fingers, you know, their hand over their eyes and shake their head because they've been caught again. They did it again. Because the answer is, why'd you do that? And what I'm saying is the artist goes, oh. And the answer is, because it was in the photograph. And frankly, that's as far as we need to get most of the time. And we all have a good laugh because it's happened to all of us. Everybody in there, it's happened to everybody. Why'd you do that? Oh, because it was in the photograph. I would say that's still probably the number one mistake that I tend to make. And of course, I'm talking even if you're working on plein air. If you're working, why did you put this or that there? Remember, I had a really nice painting of our main street in town, which I paint a lot. Got one coming up, by the way. Next week I'll be abandoning portraits for a while and going back to my bread and butter, which is cityscapes. Anyway, I did this nice painting of the street, and there was a big magazine display rack right in the middle of the sidewalk. And they said, well, what is that? And I did palm to forehead. It's like, oh man, why'd you put that there? Because it's there. Because it's there. There's a big square, not attractive magazine rack. And if you're from Raleigh, then you kind of might know what it is. But still, nah, it didn't need to be there. So doggone it. You'd think I'd learn these lessons after a while. But I am learning them slowly. Better slowly than never, eh? It's some of my Canadian roots coming out. I have permission to say eh because I was born in Canada. Ah, tooth. Edge of tooth. And remember, beware of painting teeth too white and painting eyes, whites of the eyes. Beware of painting them too white. The answer is, what color do you paint them? Well, you don't know. You go like this and go, ooh, pretty close. Pretty close. I'm going to darken it just a tiny bit. Okay, close enough. 1/8 of an inch, oh, a scant 1/8 of an inch up. Right? A grayish pink. How's that for color description? A grayish pink. The three reds that I typically have on my palette, and do on this one as well, are from cool to warm, permanent rose, naphthol crimson, and Scarlet Lake. And when I'm doing portraits of those three, Scarlet Lake is what gets used the most for blush in cheeks like this. It's a Scarlet Lake. It's a warm red color. But for the color of lips, most of the time, the color of the lips is quite a cool red. Surprising to me, it's always surprisingly cool. Surprised to me how cool, because I would think the lips would be a warm red, but very often they're not. They're actually a purplish red. Always a surprise to me how purple they are. Why am I calling it? No coronavirus. Dust in the air. Oh my goodness. I'm reading your discussion, Barbara and Uncle Mug, some crazy train driver. Are you crazy? No. He was from Ohio. Okay, I haven't removed this plastic yet, and really taken a look at my painting to see if it looks like Dear Nancy. Ooh, let me put this brush down. It's got too dark of a paint on it. So, man, how's this for technical tips and mechanical means? What I have been typically calling cheating. I'm going to try to change my verbiage, by the way. I got a really sweet email from a very old gentleman the other day, and helped me to see some things that I really hadn't seen before. So all of my railing about calling it cheating, I'm trying to turn over a new leaf. I'm not here to discourage anybody. So I'm going to try to, I don't know what I'm going to call it. Mechanical means or technical tricks, either one. How about that? One of those terms or a combination of those terms. And you could say, well, aren't you a little embarrassed that you have to resort to such an extreme? So, artificial means of support. Part of me is, yeah, heck, I wish I was better than this. But no, I'm not certainly not mortified. Oh, I started to say a while ago, if you want to see the, paintings that I'm proud of, they're all on dadnelsonart.com. Go to paintings and then click on portraits, and you can see, last count, I think 67 portraits there. And if they're there, I'm not embarrassed by them or of them. And that's what really matters, is the final product. Along those lines, speaking of cheating, quote unquote, speaking of cheating, and I've alluded to this several times. Whoops, that must be my wife. No, it's not. I forgot to put do not disturb on my phone. I forgot to turn it on, so we just got disturbed, didn't we? Probably, arguably, I'll put it this way, arguably the most famous movie poster, or the most popular movie poster painter of all time. Arguably, you could make the case for several different ones. But one of them, and the one that I like the best, is a guy named, and I'm drawing a blank. Hang on just a second, I'll tell you his name in just a second. I've got a whole folder dedicated to him on my desktop here. Drew Struzan, D-R-E-W in this case, not to be confused with Drew Blair, who I've talked about on several occasions. Drew Struzan, S-T-R-U, just like it sounds, Struzan. And if you Google him, you'll go, oh, wow, he did that. So he did a bunch of the Star Wars, early Star Wars. He did a bunch of the early Indiana Jones and a whole bunch of other stuff. You'll recognize his style instantly. And he's certainly one of the best illustrators in the country. He retired a couple years ago. And he, of course, never drew, so to speak, I'm exaggerating, but he never drew a lick in his life without tracing. He traced everything and defended his practice quite vociferously by saying, what you're paying for is the final product. That's what you're paying for. And so there is that, that's okay. And again, the only argument against that, if there is any, is, yeah, but do you want your skills to get better? If you do, then you've got to exercise that muscle. So that's, of course, a big part of what I'm doing here. Not right at the moment. Now I'm using whatever means are necessary to get the job done. But that's why have, up until this moment, was doing it more or less the hard way. Even though some of you know I had already done some measuring on this Nancy lady. All right. Okay. Now, whoa, something looks strange about her eyes. That's par for the course when you paint mechanically like that, just copying mechanically. Things go a little haywire. It's like, nah, that does not look right. Then what am I back to then? Now I'm back to plain old-fashioned copying and seeing and copying, drawing. That's a little better. And a very dark red under her nose right here. And I'm already tired of painting on her. So, and what I really mean by that is I don't trust my eyes right now to see accurately. Because I've been staring at her too long now and I can't see my mistake. So I'm going to put her away and move to another one, okay? Right now? Almost right now. Whew. Yeah, no, I don't like her. I'm not worried about it. I just say, okay, time for fresh eyes. Let's move on, shall we? All right, so I've worked, that's number 3 today. Let's go all the way back to my buddy Wright. I haven't worked on him in several days. Here he is, but I need to, first of all, I need to move my easel down, so bear with me just a minute while we do the lowering of the easel operation. I bought this easel a couple years ago when our kids moved in, and I have grandchildren, 4 grandchildren running around downstairs much of the time, and that meant I couldn't paint in peace and quiet much of the time. So I bought this easel, and I've been quite happy with it actually. And it's called what, the Carolinian or the Carolina? I can't remember, one of those. Distributed by Jerry's Artorama. Not too expensive at all, $140 or something like that. And not bad. I've modified it slightly, of course. This device that I'm using here of putting clipboards, I added 2 boards stacked up here, so there's a bit of a under hook hang here. This is a piece of 1/4 round, a piece of flat 1/8 inch underneath it, so that those clipboards are pretty stable right there. And then some other boards that go out, that I added, go out here to hang things on. I don't have any idea how other artists can stand to paint at an easel that doesn't have a palette attached to it. I mean, the idea of the thought of holding a palette in my hand while I paint is just repugnant to me. Repugnant, I tell you. It don't get no worse than repugnant. All right, let's pull up Wright. So this is my buddy Wright when he was in high school, and he ain't exactly in high school anymore. He's a business entrepreneur, owns a car wash here in, and what kind of cheats, I'm sorry, you keep using that term, what kind of mechanical means or tricks, technical tricks have I already used? And I can't remember. Well, one very mild trick was I put this, in Photoshop, I drew this grid, box X, and then you can still see bits and pieces of it here. I drew with watercolor pencil, the same thing on the canvas. And then I used measuring devices. So this is a fairly technical, I guess. But again, and this is along the lines of, I believe, what Mark Carter does with his measuring to get his portraits right. He uses mostly a pair of dividers like this. And so you just measure very carefully and so forth to plot out points. So that will get you so far down the line. But I haven't looked at Wright now in several days, so I'm seeing him with fresh eyes. What am I seeing? It feels to me like this eye is just a little bit too large. What does it mean too large? This way or this way? It clearly doesn't go too high, so it means the bottom must need to, this eyebrow is much too hard edge, it's soft here, and I've made it hard. That's just the hair coming over the forehead. Okay, let me pick up a pencil and do the same trick again that I've done before. And so right now I'm just flying by the seat of my pants, just eyeballing it. I'm just going to fuzz this up with a pencil at the moment just to help me visualize it. There's a little bit of a shadow right there. And that light area is too light, so I'm going to darken that. It looks pretty close to me, close, really. I'm not going to put a pencil line there, but the bottom of his eye needs to come up just, again, the proverbial 1/100th of an inch. This part of his eyebrow a little bit darker. Again, cheating, this is not, a typical. By the way, I do like the way the painting, it's actually a nice painting at the moment. Brushwork, the brushwork is quite nice on it. I would hate to ruin that. His eyelashes over here. Oh yeah, a little bit too much. All right, so I've got two things I need to fix right off the bat without going any further. One is to move this eye up and the bottom of the eye. Yeah, and I'm going to use the crazy 2 pairs of glasses at the same time. It's when you're glad that none of your kids are here to laugh at you. Dad. Nobody wears 2 pairs of glasses. That is really dorky. Kind of shows you how old my kids were, right? When the word dorky was around in the. I am not ridiculing my kids. Honestly, I'm being kind of silly. It does not sound like something my kids would do. I just was afraid they would do it, so see, it was just my own insecurity speaking. How's that? A little better, except that it's a little too light out here. This part needs to be darker. Yeah, a little bit redder. That's good. Okay, then the next thing, what was it? It was over on this eye somewhere. Well, let's while we're in the neighborhood, let's take a second to soften the top of this and bring this hair down a little bit and bring this hair down a little bit. So to soften an edge, I don't think there's any way to do it without painting both colors. Painting both the dark and the light and making the brush strokes at the intersection overlap with each other. That's how you soften an edge, I think. I don't know of any other way to do it. That's crazy. There was something I said about this eye over here, and now I'm drawing a bit of a blank. That's irritating. Give me just a minute. It'll come back to me. Oh, I know what it is. That's right. His eyelashes are too thick. Oh yeah. Okay, so I can carve down a little tiny bit into that dark area. All right, I've got another one of those little bumps on the canvas that just is in the wrong place. Once again, if you haven't seen that trick, the key is a curved blade, not a straight one. Okay. I want this edge quite soft again. Better to err on the side of too soft than too hard, especially with a portrait, because you want to convey that, a human being is not an exoskeleton, right? I don't need to point that out, do I? We are not exoskeletal creatures. We're all soft and smushy on the outside. So better to paint more soft and smushy than too hard edge. That's a mistake again that you see so often in early portraiture, just too hard edge. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, as they say. looks pretty good to me. Which I might be daft. Wright had a bunch of comments the other day when he was watching. He's an artist and he doesn't do portraits, but he was watching and had a number of instructions. Oh, this line right here, I've got it way too thick. Okay, and then the question is, do I carve it this way? Do I carve it this way? It's got to be that way. I hope I don't have to move his whole eye. Whoops. Sometimes you just have too much paint on your brush. Okay, now, and by the way, evidently, I'm just realizing with this latest series of portraits that I've done the last couple of weeks, it'll be 12 portraits basically in 2 weeks. I'm discovering, and for better or worse, I'm not saying it's the right way to do it, but I'm discovering when I begin to do final check, like I'm doing today, quote unquote final, I tend to I start at the top and move down. I'm not saying that's a good way to do it. I'm just sort of this surprise discover, oh, that's what I normally do, all things being equal. And I'm doing it here again on Wright. All right, so a little more shadow on this side of the nose. And this side of the nose, diminish the sharpness of that crease. And ooh, soften his nostril considerably. See that's, by the way, that there is somebody, the clear sign of somebody painting, not by what they're seeing, but by painting by rote, by painting out of their head, which is, again, not what you want to do. Generally speaking, you want to paint by what you're seeing. And so I put too much of a shadow under his nose because everybody knows there's a shadow under the nose, right? Quote unquote. And that is wrong thinking, erroneous thinking. Did you catch that? So I just caught myself saying, wait, I did that wrong. I was just painting on my head, so to speak. A little bit of a blush right in here. There we go. A little bit of a blush over here too. All of a sudden I've got blush on the brain now. Saying, wait. If there's more blush there, I bet there's somewhere else too. Yeah, right over here. And definitely some on the chin. His chin got entirely too brown down here. All right, now let me back up. You guys saying anything I can't miss? I think my wife ordered one of those masks that has the PM 2.5 filter because they have a little thing on them. All right, let me stand back and look at his nose. It feels a little too defined still, and that's probably the correct feeling. That is, that it's a little bit too sharp somewhere. A little bit too much contrast. A little bit, yeah. But his smile line, I've underpainted, so that's a nice problem to have because it's an easy fix. Increasing that crease, if you will. Increase a crease. How are you guys all doing on this fine, beautiful? Is it beautiful where you are? Absolutely gorgeous. I'm actually kind of thankful that this coronavirus thing is hitting in the springtime. Aha! Wait, 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 wait. Oh, hallelujah. My eye just saw something. I don't know how to explain that. All of a sudden, I just saw with fresh objectivity, and I'll tell you what I saw. I don't know how well you guys can see this. I know that's as much as I can zoom in. All of a sudden, I said, wait a minute. His chin, this side of his chin needs to go that way. His chin here is too sharp. And it's all down here. We're okay right there, but here, I think it needs to, well, let me just paint it, and then, so this is, without doing any measure, well, no, hang on, I've got this, let's do a quick measure here. I don't know what to measure, though. Never mind, there's nothing to measure. So I'm just going to move his chin over. His chin does feel too sharp, and this might be the culprit, that this side of his chin got shaved up that way. Look at that. That is better. The color is terrible, so let's work on that. And I have finally run out of titanium white, so here, since I'm putting out paint, let me turn you guys at my palette just for a minute. I sure hope I remember to pick you back up. Very typical operation for me. So you could see my hodgepodge. It was, you know, a little more organized than that a while ago. But all of this stuff up here is mostly dried, or somewhat dried, skinned over titanium white, and there's just a tiny bit left. I think that's all I need to scrape off. So I'll do that, this kind of thing, fairly often. Glass, razor blade, straight razor, and so I can put out another, if I can get the lid off, I can put out another batch of titanium white, and I always do my titanium white in separate piles, so that each pile gets contaminated with a different color, more or less. Hey, here's a tool I haven't talked about in a long time. It's a tube ringer, and I have something very special to say about this. It needs to be a tube ringer manufactured by, I can't read it, it's so dirty. Okay, bear with me, this is worth knowing. This is one of those, this is one of those gizmos worth buying. It's about time for me to do another one of those broadcasts, isn't it? Oh, there we go. Okay, I hope they're still in business. Gill Mechanical Company, Eugene, Oregon. Gill Mechanical. So the point here is there's a number of people that make tube ringers. There's some company that makes a plastic one. Don't waste your money. It's a waste of money. Don't buy it. It doesn't work. And then some other company, probably in China, started making a metal one. Don't buy it. It's a complete waste of money. You'll be throwing it out or whatever. Yeah, you have to get the Gill Mechanical, Eugene, Oregon, or wherever, somewhere in Oregon. Is it Oregon? Yep, Eugene. Anyway, that is a gizmo. That'll save you a bazillion dollars, right? Bazillion, that's an exaggeration, but it will save you a noticeable amount of money by getting all the paint out of your tubes. Real money saver. Ah, Michael, that's a very good question. What do you think you've learned the most from doing all these portraits? And hello, whoa, whoa, pop. Yeah, Uncle, sorry, man. You bought the cheap one. Oh, okay, something's still wrong with his mouth. I'm just glancing at it suddenly with fresh eyes. I think I'm dead on, or very close to dead on, up from there up. There, not quite. Great question. Michael, are you Deborah? We got somebody around here who uses a man's name, her husband's name. Are you Deborah? Anyway, be that as it may, I'm going to call you Michael. um, what have I learned? That is a great question. I can feel my brain growing. I've gotten better at drawing. That's not doesn't answer your question exactly. What have I learned? Um, um, I've learned that I've got a long way to go. I've learned that if I stick with it and do whatever needs to be done to get the job done, I can get the job done. I have all the same weaknesses that I've had for a long time. Overly sharp, overly contrasty, um, bad, and I'm telling you all the stuff that's bad right now. Really bad brushmanship when I'm doing a painting this size, but I don't know how you can do anything else. Um, I don't trust this face. I'm looking at it fresh. I'm going, now her nose is too long. Sorry, Jane. Now her nose is too long. Yeah, I'm going to fix that later. So that is a great question, and I am failing to answer it. I like the brushwork on this quite well. I'm going to have to think about that. Thanks for a great question. Let me continue to move down his face, so a tiny bit more shadow right here and there. And the downhill, if you will, right corner of his mouth that points down. I think I haven't got it pointing down quite enough. That is a great question. Michael, okay, you're not Brenda. Or good, Michael, you're Michael. $25.95. Yeah, that's why many of us tried the cheap plastic one, because that's not cheap. Okay, a little crease right there, and then I've got to shorten it a little bit. The crease comes down a little too far. So I did use a mild, if you will, mechanical process on this portrait. I did the box thing and used that to measure. And again, I think that's what Mark Carter teaches or uses quite a bit in his portraits. I believe I'm wearing the wrong pair of glasses. That would explain a little bit. Oh yeah, there we go. I'll explain that later, maybe. But if so, that's the only trick that I've used so far, and that makes me a little bit not proud of myself. Exactly, what's the word I'm looking for? Like relieved. Like, oh, okay. Again, I've said this so many times, but it bears repeating. Part of the reason I really do enjoy doing portraits is because it's the final frontier. It's the hardest thing. And when I teach an ongoing painting, drawing, art class, drawing in particular, the thing we do all the time is figures and faces. And as I have the students repeat, why are we doing figures and faces? And all you guys, so to speak, you want to be portrait painters. Why are we doing? And they all know. They repeat after me, because it's the hardest thing. And if we can do the hardest thing, then everything else is comparably a piece of cake to over-exaggerate. But to make the point, everything else is easy. If you if you capture likeness. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing it, and I think there's really just no shortcut, unfortunately, for the hard work, and that's why that's why I'm not as good as I would like to be. Why? Because it's not my full-time job. But if I work on this, if I can do this, then I say to myself, say to you, think how much easier it will be for me to stand out on a street corner in whatever city, and I look down the street, the amount of information assaulting my retina, the visual center of my brain, the amount of information is almost overwhelming. But if I've done this kind of work, hopefully, I know very well that I'll be better at drawing a cityscape. Of course, there's also a part of me. I want to be good at everything, of course. You can't be good at everything, but I want to be good at everything. So, of course, I want to be at least pretty good at doing portraits. Okay, and you know, I'll stand by my work. I'm not on the verge of getting invited, or I could join Portrait Society of America, of course. Anybody can join. I wouldn't win any prizes, and that doesn't really bother me a lot. I would like to win some prizes in Oil Painters of America, and that hasn't happened either. So I've gotten in. Didn't get in this year. That was a bitter pill, but again, I knew better than to hold my breath, because you just... Oil Painters of America, every year they have a national show. About 2,500 of the best oil painters in America, generally speaking, apply to get in. Less than 10% make it. So you just can't hold your breath. But they are good. It's not a rigged system at all, I don't think. When you look who does get in, you go, dang, they deserve to get in. At least that's the way I feel about it. Didn't get in this year, though. Bummer. I'm getting too far afield from his mouth. I need to come back to his mouth and get serious. I think I'm getting a little bit tired, and so I'm avoiding. One of the things, something about his mouth doesn't have enough contrast, doesn't have enough darkness, which is a nice problem to have. Not my typical problem. My typical problem is I've overdone the contrast a little bit. So it's a little bit nice to go, oh, wait a minute, I kind of underdid it this time. Woohoo, good for me. So bumping up some of that dark elements is an easy, nice problem to have. Aha. Lip not quite full enough over here, I think. And I'm going to repaint a reflection in there very shortly. Aha, I just saw an omission. That's wonderful. Okay, here I've got this curve, of course, and I've got this in curve and this out curve. Check, check, check. But there's a very slight out curve right there that I have that is not quite pronounced enough in my painting. And then inside that shape, there's some shading, of course, and a little crease. little tiny crease up here. Okay, a word about creases. A word to you and to me both. A word to the wise, as they say. A word about creases in skin, right? It's a dark shape, a dark line. I'll give you a little, I know this the hard way. Whenever you're painting a crease, a line in somebody's face, whether it's a baby or an old man, you achieve that crease, you indicate and render that crease. Sure, you have to put some dark paint down, right, to make adequate darkness, but you never finish with that dark paint. You have to follow through by painting the lighter flesh color on either side of that crease up to the crease. In other words, so the best way to do it, in my opinion, is to just slap down without being too careful about it. Just slap right now by the way I'm doing dark green under the shadow of his face here. Because I'm carving his face with the green paint. Want to make it soft, not hard. All right, so you put down the dark, and then I'm going to use the same brush and mix up some slightly lighter, and you carve into that crease mark that you made. You can put down the crease fairly quickly. The part that is you have to be careful about then is the negative painting the crease, right? Shaving it up, shaving into it, carving into it to make it exactly the right shape. And then you can, if you do that, you can achieve the look of a crease. I remember, my goodness, 35 years ago, looking at the artwork. It was a moment when this light bulb came on. I don't, we forget most of the moments, I think, that some light bulb comes on. But this is one that I remember. A good friend of mine was an artist, a wannabe artist anyway, and she had painted the conventional or traditional, whatever the word may be, old Indian chief with wrinkles. You know, you got the picture? Old Indian, brave, but old Indian chief with the wrinkles. And she had painted the wrinkles like last. I'm not sure that at the moment I was aware of what the mistake was. I knew it didn't work. I wasn't being hypercritical of her work. I just made the note like, something's not right about that. And I think it was shortly thereafter, upon meditation, I went, oh, I know what it was. She painted the wrinkles last and left it. And what you have to do is paint the wrinkles, and then so it's the same. It's this adage, if you will, this old mantra that many artists use: darks first, lights last. It applies on so many levels, and yes, certainly applies in the realm of portraiture. Doing exactly what I just talked about. I put a dark mark for that smile line there, and then I'm coming back into it with the light color. Same thing over here. Yeah, now let's do, at some point, sometimes there are some details that you've got to get in, or because they really can be hampering the achievement of a likeness. And right now, I've been just haven't been paying any attention to the light, the highlight, the sparkle, if you will, on his bottom lip in particular. And it's time for me to come and do that. See how flat this is compared to that? So let's just do that. It's a pale pink color. Easy to overdo it because your brain says, ooh, reflection, and then you, if you're not careful, you just paint out of your head, and you overdo, in this case, the reflection. It's again the dreaded postage stamp reflection in the eyeball. Now, I'm not doing an eyeball right now, but that's again a real common mistake that early portrait painters make, is putting the reflection in the eyeball, making it too sharp and too intense. Again, the solution is to use your eyes. The mistake is created by painting out of one's mind instead of painting through one's eyes. Instead of actually looking at the photograph analytically, carefully, and critically, you just go, ooh, 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 reflection, yeah, I can do that. So to speak. Okay, I think I'm finally ready to tackle his teeth again. Thank you, Michael. Oh, from Scotland. That's right. Thank you, Michael. I remember that. Sorry I forgot for a minute. Bobo Pop said, I started watercolor and I think I'll fail a lot and learn a lot about color at the same time. I agree. I mean, my goodness, anybody that starts with watercolor, that's the hardest. The good news is if you can do halfway decent in watercolor, you'll find every other medium quite easy in comparison. Hello, Treadfall. Thank you very much. Greetings to you. All right, teeth. There's one tooth way over here that I haven't even, and it's just the faintest gray smudge. Oh boy, but now I'm in trouble. Now it might be time for 2 pairs of glasses again, which I hate, but which I will do to get the job done. Yeah, I need to do the gaps between his teeth. And here again, in fact, I made the mistake on one of the earlier portraits today of having that color too dark, putting too dark of a color on my brush. Let's just test this right here. Oh yeah, nearly perfect, good enough. By the way, here's a good rationale for starting your corrections at the top and working down. Right, look at my hand is resting right on the painting, and of course that would be very problematic if this was wet paint, right? So a little bit more of a point on his lip. Keep using this. Very nice Winsor Newton Series 7, number 3. Ooh, it's pretty big size. And somebody asked me last night, I already mentioned it, he asked me what color do you mix up for the teeth or the eyes, the whites of the eyes or the white teeth? And the answer is there's no telling at all. There's no recipe. You use your eyes and use the photograph or the live. If you're doing live, you look at the color and do what the color tells you. That you can't do a recipe for something like that. The spacing of the teeth has a lot to do with capturing a likeness. It's amazing. It always surprises me. I remember one time, 7 years ago, 2012, I was doing a portrait, one of my art prize portraits. You can see on my website and on portraits, and at the bottom of the page is my on-the-spot festival portraits from photographs, not from people sitting live. Anyway, there's one there labeled Tom, and it was a portrait of the artist who was set up right next to me. We had a great time, and I really wanted to do a good job on him, of course, partly because he was right there and be there all 3 weeks. And anyway, so I worked, and it was a photograph of Tom with his teeth showing. And I spent 2 hours on his teeth. I remember that. Whew. Nailed it. But took me a long time. Had to get his teeth right. Again, Dan Nelson Art. Go to paintings, go to portraits, and scroll down all the way to the bottom where it's my, what I call festival, on-the-spot festival portraits. That'll make a little more sense if you go look at it. But anyway, Tom is listed there. He's the one with the 2-hour teeth. I could have finished him a lot quicker if I'd had him smile with his mouth closed. Okay, let me do the highlight again on his bottom lip. Secondary, brighter highlight than I did the first time. And then I'll back up and see if I'm close on my good friend Wright. I know I'm close, but I'll see how close I am, actually. Okay, back up. Oops. Nope, something's wrong. Here on his mouth. I think it's just that the top part of his bottom lip, I've got it too dark. The top part of his bottom lip on the right is just too dark. And so there you go. It's a matter of values, shading values, and it's impacting likeness because it just doesn't look like him. There, I think that's better. Okay. Now, the bottom of his bottom lip is too dark and comes down too far right here. So back to get a flesh-colored brush up here and shave this right there. Keep it soft. Don't make it hard. But by the way, that's something I've wanted to say several times. Just because you're holding your brush in this death control grip, and there are times, at least for me, obviously, when I just have to wear 2 pairs of glasses and hold. But just because you're holding the brush in that manner doesn't mean you have to render razor sharp edges. Okay, so this does not equate. It's easy to do, so you have to ride the brakes, hold back, and restrain yourself. But just because you're holding your brush in that manner doesn't mean that you have to do hard edges. Okay, you can do soft edges holding it this way. That's really important to understand and to do. All right, I'm quite happy with Wright, I believe. Let me do a little bit more on his ear. His ear is just roughed in here, really. Let's do a little bit more on his ear and then move on to Wright's parents, which is the last 2 portraits of the day. I mean, of the go-round, of this round of portrait. And when I come back this afternoon, I don't know if I'm going to broadcast, I probably will. If I find myself doing anything interesting, I'll certainly start broadcasting. But I've got it, as you can see, I've got all the backgrounds of all these paintings to do. And now I'm asking myself, how did I get myself into this? How did I let myself be talked into this? Okay, it was my own fault, I admit. Nope. Hang on, hang on, hang on. Something, oh, I know that, somehow, I remember even when I did this, I got the shadow, the dark edge of his bottom lip is too dark, too edgy. And that's impacting his likeness. It's making me lose likeness. Just that line right there is just too dark. I like his eyes. I'm going to do a little bit of highlight along the ridge of his top lip. I've done it several times, but it's still not coming out quite enough. There we go. That might be it. This is, again, the photograph that I'm working from is a flash photograph, which is not at all ideal for a portrait. But as you can see, sometimes it's you got to work with what you've got. And the good news is most people, in fact, I've long since learned that most people have no idea. They don't even know what I mean when I say, you can tell it's a flash photo, right? And they look at me like, what? So first of all, it's the kind of thing that's only bothering us artists or us photographers or artists. Most people are not even aware of what you're saying. So that's okay. But you really have to follow the photograph. You can't make up stuff. Like, you don't say things like, oh, everybody knows there's a shadow under the nose kind of thing, because I'm saying that ironically when I'm painting a shadow nose, but because in a flash photograph, all those rules are out the window. And again, you have to paint what you're seeing. You can't paint what you're imagining, which is the number one obstacle to seeing what your eyes are pointed at. Is you don't see what your eyes are pointed at, because your brain takes over and interpolates for you. Says, oh, everybody knows grass is green, roses red, violets are blue, grass is green, sky is blue, you know. All right, I'm close enough for now. There's something a little, oh, okay, no, I know, no. Okay, the shadow, the shadow of his top lip now is too dark. Easy fix, thank you very much. Keep it soft. Just because I'm holding the brush in this manner doesn't mean I have to paint razor sharp edges. I can paint razor sharp edges in this manner, but no, I don't want to at all. So there we go, that's a little better. Now that I've done that, I see that his top lip over here is a little too full, just a little. Take it down again, the proverbial 100th of an inch, probably a 64th or less. A little bit of highlight right there. Right, I'm growing blind, of course, to this portrait, so it's time to move on. And of course, you guys, if I'm growing blind, you're growing deaf from the too much talking here. Thank you, Treadfall. Appreciate the encouragement. All right, out with right, or rat, as they say somewhere in the South, or as he said, rat, like R-A-T, rat, spelled dragged out real long, rat. He has some country cousins, evidently. And here are Wright's parents, Jim and Sally, also friends of mine. It really does help to know the people. There's a definite advantage to knowing the people that especially if you're working from a photograph, because if you know them, your inner subconscious something begins to recognize them when you start capturing a likeness. I actually, oh, I forgot, when I first came in this morning, I actually made some pencil marks on these already, just because seeing from fresh eyes, you know, seeing with fresh eyes, I went, oh, bum, 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 made several marks. So I'm going to start with that. And now I need to find Jim's photograph. He's around here. Here he is. He's on the back. He's on the back of this. Bear with me while I shuffle all my pictures over here. All right, I'm coming back, I promise. Okay, good news is I can just stick him right there on the dry part of the painting. Okay, I've got, let's do the easy stuff first. For some reason, somehow, I got the earlobe of his glasses too low. Actually, I shouldn't say somehow I did. I know exactly how I did that. The reason is my brain tends to slough off and go soft when I'm doing things like glass frames, because I go, oops, glass frames, that's easy. Ignore, you know, I ignore it to my undying shame, to my peril, because so then I end up making stupid mistakes because I just didn't look hard enough, so to speak. And now that I've done that, my goodness, here we go. One bad turn turns to another, doesn't it? Now that I've done that, let's work on the frame of his glasses, of course, which is actually white. I've never gotten around to even correcting this part yet, but that is painting it white instead of dark. Goes up a little higher than I have it. I didn't do this part in pencil, I should have. And how far down does it come? Well, one thing is clear, it essentially disappears right here. So we get a little bit of artsy points, by the way. I don't know if you know this. You get artsy points for lost edges. I'm being a little facetious. Listen, if it disappears in the photograph, you should consider making it, at least consider. You're not a slave to the photograph, but you ask yourself, would it look better if I made it disappear in the painting the way it does in the photograph? My opinion on that right at the moment is clearly yes, it would look better. So just made it disappear right there the way it does in the photograph. Now, is it the right? Have I got it to right? I almost do. Whoops. Try to keep my elbow out of my paints here. So I'm raising it up just again, the proverbial 100th. No, this is more like a 64th of an inch right there. Raising it up. Now I think it's accurate. Of course, I could be all wet. I've been humiliated enough just today with Judy's portrait a while ago that I did the radical technique on tracing. Now there is something that's not right. Okay, so let me, I'm just about had enough of this because my feet are getting sore. So, talking not out of my technical, critical art brain, but talking out of my ordinary human being brain, I look at this and say, he's smiling too much here. That's worthless language for the artist. Do you understand? But it's okay to start there and say, okay, why do I feel like he's smiling too much? And, oh, well, first of all, so now I look at this smile line and say, oh, mine is too short and it swings back too far. Well, that's an easy fix. Golly, why didn't somebody tell me that earlier? That could impact the feel that I'm getting, the sense that he's smiling too much. But I also think there's something about this crease right here, and I think it might be back too far. I'm not sure, but I'm going to just move it forward a little bit here. I should have done that with my left hand, shouldn't I? Too late now. Now, I don't mind, it goes back to that thing. Are you allowed to change anything in a person's face? And the answer is yes, but not so much that the person or anybody will see that you changed it, okay? Like, would it be okay for me to make him smiling ever so slightly more than he really is? Of course, that would be a pleasant change. But how do you know if you've done it too much? Well, somebody can see, oh, you made him smiling. See, that would be embarrassing. Sorry, dog, I'm busy. Sorry, sorry, sorry. And there's a crease. Right there. Now you know about creases, don't you? If you put the crease, you are not finished. You have to come with the light colored flesh on either side of that crease and shape it up, carve it up. Just the crease by itself doesn't look like a crease. It looks like a brush stroke, if I may. It looks like somebody put some dark paint on a brush and drew it across the face, which of course is exactly what you did. It's only after you come back and disguise it even a little bit, you might say, that you begin to capture the illusion of a crease in the face. All right, now let's look at that. Now the color of his top lip is quite erroneous, if you will. And I think I'm making some progress here. Let's more red up higher on his lip, bottom lip. More red. It's pretty red on his top lip. And I think, I can't promise this, but I think, whoops. So ladies and gentlemen, my phone is about to die, so I hope you're not going to get static right here, but if you do, so be it. It can't be helped. I think this, other than obviously stopping the broadcast, that would fix it. I think this part needs to come forward a little bit, and then I think that needs to come forward, and that. So I'm, in a sense, moving his whole cheek here forward just a little bit. I'm going to do it and then see if I feel like I've increased the likeness. Once again, I would say that my level of portraiture is represented pretty well with where Jim is at right now. I'm good enough. I can capture a likeness. Okay, so that is a mile marker. That's a point that you want to get to on your journey, that people can tell who you're painting. But of course, it's far from the finish line. The finish line is you capture a quote-unquote perfect likeness, and I don't mean I don't, those of you who struggle with perfectionism, I'm not talking in your kind of language. I'm talking in all for all practical purposes. It's a quote unquote perfect likeness. So I'm not talking technically, because if a human being is involved, perfection is out of the question. Okay, so anyway, so in the loose sense of the word, a perfect likeness, that's what I'm working on, and that's right where I'm at with Jim. I mean, there's no question this is Jim, right? There is a considerable question that does one look at it and go, yeah, well, that's Jim Jackson, all right. But something's a little funny. In fact, this famous quote, by the way, I think of John Singer Sargent, I think, said a portrait is a photograph of a person where something's a little funny with the mouth. Something's a little wrong with the mouth. You can Google that and look that up and see who it was who said that. Something a little funny with the mouth. Of course, and the chin, and the ears, and the nose, and the eyes, and the cheek, and the forehead, and you got it. Okay, I think I'm. Let's go to back to that top lip, because I need to. Phew. I don't know that I believe this color. Clearly I decided this was a good color when I printed it off. But I'm now having feelings like, nah, I don't know. I think I overdid the saturation. Clearly my painting is not as red as the photograph, but I'm not sure that I want it to be as red as the photograph. But then I'm in trouble. If you start, boy, I've learned that the hard way over the years. If you start diverging from the photograph, you strike out on your own. That's when you really get into trouble. Oh my goodness, I remember one time I've mentioned this a while ago, 20-some years ago, maybe 18 years ago, yeah. One of my early major professional portraits. It was for a wealthy family here in town. There are 4 beautiful teenage children, 3 girls and 1 boy. And I did the photographic session. That's when I learned, by the way, sometimes as a painter, it might be worth me hiring a photographer, because I mean, I know I can take pretty good pictures, but I'm not a professional, and especially not a professional when it comes to capturing people. So it turns out their 15-year-old boy was a typical immature 15-year-old boy. I don't mean that physically. I mean, he was a typical hot dogger kid, wanted to look cool. So he was posing for me. I didn't know him. I didn't know any of the kids, I mean, neither parents. And he was posing for me for the, all the, back in those days, I believe it was film, I think. Wow. Anyway, all 3 rolls of film. He was putting on this fake bad dude, no teeth showing image, and I didn't know that wasn't him, but he was putting it on an act for me. And I think a professional photographer would have caught that. A professional portrait photographer would have caught that and said, Joe, come on, give me a smile now, or whatever, Anyway, so when the parents saw my photographs, they said, especially the mom, as you can imagine, her precious 15-year-old boy was pretending to be 30 and Joe Cool. She said, no. So they gave me some pictures of him. Oh boy. And so then I nailed the portraits of the 3 girls. It took a long time and so on and so forth. Got the job done, used whatever means were necessary. But Joe, I kept trying to take the photographs that his parents had given me and sort of shoehorn it into the picture with the other 3 girls. And I repainted Joe so many times. I kind of joke about it, but if you if you've tried portrait, you can understand this. I repainted him so many times that he started turning into a relief sculpture on the canvas. The paint on his face was so thick that it was actually starting to stand out from the three girls. How's that for a sorry mess? And by the way, I'm doing kind of a deadening gray on some of Jim's face here. So after trying literally for weeks, I gave up and said, you know what, I need to come back and take fresh pictures of Joe. So I did that, had another completely separate photo session with, you know, the sun, of course, coming from the right direction, so on and so forth. Same ambient light that the first one was made in. And went back to my studio with an acceptable photo of Joe. And very quickly, you know, was able to execute. And my skill at drawing had increased quite a bit because, boy, I'd really been working hard. Kind of like I'm doing these last couple of weeks. I've really been working hard. You know what? The bottom of his ear does not look right to me. I mean, it doesn't look like it lines up correct. Let's check that real quick. Okay, but here's part of the story, just for fun. What did I do with Joe's face? Get this, camera shifted. Thank you. So, I literally took a Dremel tool with a little round sand wheel on it, and I carved off his face all the way back down, all the way down to, okay, hang on here, bottom of ear, a little above the middle of the nostril. That is not at all right, is it? It's supposed to come down. Anyway, I dremeled his face, dremeled the paint all the way down, back down to gesso. Crazy. Never did that before or since. All right, let me make a mark here. Indeed, his ear is too high. I knew it. I'm glad I caught it. So it comes down more like that. You guys are all trying to let me know that my camera was off. Sorry about that. Once again, doing this cheesy technique of using a pencil, in this case a brown pencil, to mark corrections on my painting. All right, I'm going to go just a few more minutes, mostly because my feet are getting sore, and I've been at this quite a good long time, and your brain can only sustain what your feet can handle or something like that. I'm getting a little fuzzy. So I'll probably paint by myself for a little while. I know of all the nerve to paint without you guys, but I'll probably do that. And then if I start doing something interesting, I promise to dial back up. And it looks to me like broadcasting on Facebook is just not going to work until I order a new camera. And as you can imagine, I'm not rolling in dough these days. Roughly $30,000 worth of contracts. Money that I was supposed to make in March, April, and May has all disappeared. So I'm right in there with you guys, some of you. And we did not have boatloads of emergency fund. Not that I don't know that that's what you're supposed to do. Oh, I'm quite aware of the fact that that's a good idea. Thank you, Dave Ramsey. Unable to do it. Anyway, let me do just a little bit more before we go. made some marks down here that were supposed to be corrective. I'm quite bothered by the little crease in between his lips that I did with a pencil, and now I can't get rid of it. So let's come in here, put on the super duper X-ray glasses again, and just cover up that line. I'm still debating how much of the mechanics of his glasses to include in the painting. At the moment, I'm kind of doing a bit of a fade out there, just letting it stay more abstract. Having said that, I'm going to draw part of it, not necessarily the whole thing. It's a little bit obtrusive, in my opinion. A little bit too much of a good thing there in the photograph, so I don't feel compelled to faithfully represent it completely. Let's do his ear, though. It's this discovery that his ear is too high. Oh, how about that? It was actually just that part of his ear. The rest of the ear is in the right place. It's kind of funny. Funny when that happens. I like the gray on his face. Some guy added just real recently. Often a man's beard comes out as a bluish gray. And of course what we have going on here, of course, is also secondary lighting from his shirt and so forth, so a number of things. To drag back the dark of his eye just a little bit. Yeah, that's better. Oh, there are two lines under his nose. How about that? one for his nostril and one for the bottom of his nose. But I just made it too pronounced right there with that mark. I do find Naples yellow, which is kind of like a pale yellow ochre. I find it a very helpful lightening agent when you have some color that needs just to be a little bit lighter. Instead of using white, which of course is cool, has a cooling effect. If you want it lighter, but not, you don't want it to go cool, use a Naples yellow, and it often does the job in a much more satisfactory manner. Okay, right at the moment, I'm doing a little bit of what I've called in the past times sargentizing a painting. Late in the process, when I'm confident that that I've got a likeness, come in and make some bolder marks, bolder brush strokes, more energetic strokes, a la John Singer Sargent. And I sort of half jokingly call it sargentizing a painting. And for me, it's kind of like fake it till you make it, until you really can paint like somebody like him. At least go back in the late stages and put some strokes down so it looks like you kind of paint like John Singer Sargent. And what I mean by that is, of course, energetic strokes, bold strokes, good strokes, attractive marks, interesting marks, all that language. That might be him right there. He's very, very close, and probably close enough that I should just, right now, I should just leave him alone and come back again one more time. Obviously, I've got a whole lot more work I need to do on all of these portraits because I've got all the backgrounds to do. So I'll be looking at them all quite a bit more, and that means I'm likely to see things with each time that I come and look at it. My brush is just hit the painting over here. All right, before I go, I'll show you where I'm going from here, which is I've done 5 portraits since I got up here this afternoon, and the last one to work on is Miss Sally right here. I have a pretty good, I like him, by the way. I think I might have nailed him finally. Let me put Sally up here. I have a pretty good likeness of her. It may simply be, or mostly be, just a paint, the way the paint is handled, especially around here. It's just the marks themselves are not that pleasant. I'm going ahead and adding a slight more arc to her nose, and I think if I simply get rid of the real fine pencil line here, that her nose will be the right shape. Diminish. I feel like clunky is the word. Edges too hard, contrast too great throughout Sally's face. So like I push this eyebrow back and make it much softer. It's likely to be more believable, more accurate. Yeah. Same thing. Her eyes. Yeah, everywhere. That's the main thing that's going on. Now there might be some little tiny bits of. Yeah, hang on, there is here. But let me do it since I'm right here. Some drawing issues. I see one right now on the front of her face right here. First of all, this curve cuts in a little more quickly. That is in reality. In the photograph, this cuts in a little more, so I've got it too far out. And then her lips, I've got her lips sticking out far. But if I simply remove the final vestiges of a outline there, got a piece of lint on my brush. Oh, there it is. I left it on the canvas. It's not any that good either, is it? Shave off that. I think I'll be closer. And how about the front of her teeth? How's that doing? Oh, man. Oh, I have to take off such a tiny sliver, I think, off the front of her teeth. That, again, it calls for super duper brush and super duper 2 pairs of glasses at the same time. Crazy, 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 crazy. And again, if I simply get rid of the final vestiges of pencil outline or some kind of outline that's still there, that'll probably be okay. There we go. Whew! And, wow, yeah, same thing. Same thing all the way down here. If I get rid of the outline, which of course is just a final vestige, a final artifact of some of my drawing. You can include some outlines in your painting, by the way, even though they do not exist in reality, in real nature. That I think you can get away with cheating a little bit and allowing some outline, even though it's not, strictly speaking, it's not realistic, but not this much outline, in my opinion, what I've got here, of course, and it was never intended to stay there. That's better already. Again, she's got, I keep saying I'm going to stop broadcasting and I just keep going, so hang on. Chin needs to come in a bit below the lip, sorry, on the man. Okay, thank you, Michael. Michael from Scotland has spoken, and we all know about people from Scotland. We like the way they talk. Michael, are you Scottish? Are you real Scottish? I mean, I am too, kind of in a way. My, 23andMe, no surprises. I'm Scotch, Irish, English, no surprises there. Before that, I'm York. My people are from York because evidently some of my ancestors were Vikings. Nasty Vikings. Nastiest people in the history of Europe, in my opinion, no question. But ironically, they converted to Christianity pretty readily and turned into somewhat respectable people. It's a fascinating story. I watched a documentary just a couple weeks ago about Patrick and Columba, the Irish Christians, and there were a number of, according to this documentary, and it jives with what I do know about. That's a favorite subject of mine. A favorite, I don't have a degree in it, right? It just means favorite hobby subject is Celtic history. And several of the Viking kings asked that their bodies be buried on Iona. Isn't that not crazy? They came and massacred in cold blood the priests that were worshiping and praying on Iona. And that is pretty nasty. That is pretty low down. And but they converted. They took the women and children back. The women and children told them about Jesus, and they converted to Christianity. You could say, well, that's just cultural, blah 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 blah. Blah. Okay, I know. But the proof's in the pudding. And some of them became good people, good leaders. Some of them became William the Conqueror, didn't they? And okay, good. That was a nice detour because now I get to see. Oh wait, I can tuck in on the chin right here. But I'm descended from 2 Scottish clans, Mackenzie, Gunn mostly, and Mackenzie secondarily. So one of these days, Michael, I can come back and take up ownership of my rightful property. And I love it. I have not been to Scotland. Breaks my heart. My wife are hoping to go for one of our anniversaries. We haven't got there yet. Three of my kids been there. I haven't been there. Crazy. We have a lot of Scottish in our family tradition. It's a long story I get into with you. Anyway, you know, us Yankified people, we just like hearing Scottish people, all British people actually, like to hear them talk. But particular soft spot for the Scots. So, Michael, do you know that we have, Michael, you live an hour from Edinburgh. Hey, I said it right, didn't I? At least I didn't say Edinburgh. Like 80% of the people in North Carolina would say. Okay, Edinburgh. Okay, eh? I live about an hour from Edinburgh on the borders. Bad for fighting the English border. Yes, bad for fighting the English. That didn't go for us very well, did it? The fighting the English. I mean, we had our Bruce, and we had our what's his name? Right, the movie guy. One of my daughters has been there and participated in the. Oh, good grief! What am I talking about here? You know, the movie. Participated in the Remember reenactment. So how's it going? Are you guys going to split off from Britain, do you think? Is that going to happen? I wouldn't mind if you did, by the way. I've actually have pretty strong opinions on the subject. You might be surprised. Not just about what happens in Scotland, but all around the world. Anyway, never mind. I won't open that can of worms. Too late. Yeah. So now that England's separated from, now that Britain's separated from the EU, now Scotland's going to say, okay, same for us. I do not have a good opinion. I don't have a valid, important, what's the word, a worthwhile opinion on the subject, I promise. I do not. I'm way, 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 way too far removed. Haven't studied. I do find it fascinating, though. I did say I was going to quit here, didn't I? It is true. I can paint. I can do artwork way more focusedly than I can do just about anything else. Let's fix her, at least fix her lip teeth intersection before. Let me check the color. Whoop. Right before I picked up my brush, it accidentally got slipped through another pile of paint. Do you, Michael? You know a lot of Scottish history. Well, I'll tell you a little bit, just in case. So, and this is going to be hard to tell without getting into weird spiritual stuff that might trigger you or various people, so I don't want to do that, but this is a fascinating story, and one that would give us, I don't know. My daughter, my oldest daughter, who was 17 years old at the time, she was 17 years old, an extremely gifted young lady in many respects, amazing singer, amazing worship leader, a good student, you know, went all the way through school with lots of scholarships and so forth. And she was 17 years old, and she started feeling like, you know what, I think God wants me to go to Scotland. this summer. I said, what? What? So my wife, being the good mom, she started looking into stuff. She contacted some people in Scotland, and all the doors flew wide open. A lady said, "Oh, good, sure, sir. Send your daughter. I'll be a mum to your daughter while she's over here." So anyway, I could tell you, it ended up my daughter led 6 of her friends to Scotland in the summer of 2001, I think it was. I think she was 17 years old at the time. She was the spiritual leader of the group. They didn't really know what they were going to do. They were going to pray for Scotland. I know that sounds weird, and again, forgive me if I'm just triggering all kinds of people. I'm truly sorry, but it's a fascinating story anyway, be that as it may. And they decided, no, we're just gonna go over there and do what the Spirit tells us to do. And they came back with stories upon stories upon stories that were just mind-boggling. But there was, and then 4 of them went back the following year. And they did everything. They did clan gathering, they did Braveheart Festival, all kinds of stuff. Not in a touristy way. And that sounds like they were just like tourists, but they weren't. Anyway. And then I think on the second trip, my daughter and her best friend at the time, a young lady named Chrissy, they were on a train, and they couldn't overhear the 2 older gentlemen across the aisle from them having a very heated conversation about something. And I can't remember why. My daughter and her friend interrupted and said, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "Oh, haven't you heard?" And it had something to do with Lord Sutherland and the clearances. So again, I looked it up at the time, but I barely know enough now to remember. But I do remember it was Lord Sutherland, and it was about the clearances. Of course, we know what the clearances are. But there was something, I think there was some kind of controversy. This is nearly 20 years ago. There's some kind of controversy about the removing of a statue or something, or keeping a statue or getting rid of a statue or something like that of Lord Sutherland, of course, who was this English rascal who, drove the Scots, the rightful owners of the land, into the sea, so to speak. Dreadful, dreadful season. Anyway, and my daughter said, so what, which clan was it that he drove into the sea? And the old man said, "Oh, it was the Mackenzie clan." Now, I don't know if that, again, I'm going from old memory, but it was something like that. My daughter said, "Well, I'm a Mackenzie," because we knew enough of our history at that point to know that we were descended from Mackenzie. And my daughter's best friend was named Chrissy Sutherland. They were on a train that was going by the monument, the mountain, where Lord Sutherland's statue is at the top of the mountain. And they were listening to all this, and my daughter's friend, Chrissy, turned to Alicia and said, "Alicia, I think I'm supposed to repent to you." Again, forgive me for triggering some of you guys that are creeped out by any kind of spiritual. That's all right. I'm really sorry about that, but this is such a good story. And my daughter said, "I think you're right." So they got off the train. They got off the train. They climbed the hill, whatever hill it was. Michael, you would know, probably. They climbed the hill to Lord Sutherland's statue. Chrissy got down on her knees and said, "On behalf of my ancestors who did grave injustice," I don't know the words, but that's the idea, "who did grave injustice to your ancestors, I apologize, I repent, I apologize." And they did some other kind of thing that they made up on the spot. I remember what they did. They were doing all kinds of stuff in those days. And hugged and came back down the mountain. And we're all going, "Really?" Oh my goodness. So they had story upon story upon story. That was just one of them. Anyway, And so the Sutherland, descendant of Sutherland, Lord Sutherland, apologized to the Scottish people. Repented is the word. Not apologized, repented to the Scottish people for driving them into the sea. And you might say, well, pfft, big deal, what good does that do? And you have every right to ask that question. There's some of us who believe that there are invisible realities, just be those as they may. And it's following a pattern of one of the Old Testament prophets, Daniel, who was very righteous in his own personal lifestyle, but when he realized how bad his people, the Jewish people, had been, he got down and repented on behalf of his ancestors. He said, we have disobeyed your laws. We have broken your covenants. We have torn down your altars. We have worshipped other gods. And the story goes that God heard him. And things began shifting in the atmosphere. A whole bunch of things began shifting. In fact, 500 years later, since I'm that far into the story, 500 years later, everybody knows the story of whether they're a believer or not believer or anything, everybody knows the story of the Christmas story of the wise men. Very few people know who they were, who are they, how'd they get there, what's the deal with these guys from the east. Well, they were almost certainly from Iran. As such, they were descendants of the people that Daniel, the prophet Daniel, had interfaced with 500 years earlier. 500 years after Daniel, some of his spiritual descendants came galloping across the desert, said, where's he who was born king of the Jews? We've seen his star in the east and have come to worship him. Nobody in the whole nation of Israel had as much insight into what was going on as these descendants of Daniel did 500 years after his life. So sometimes there are spiritual realities swirling around. I don't claim to understand them all by any means, but there are some interesting things out there in the world. Anyway, so we have and there's a lot more. Our son also spent 6 months in Scotland. Our youngest son. Anyway, isn't that amazing, Michael? Again, don't think I'm so arrogant or vain that I can explain all that. It is a head shaker. It is a head shaker. What are you guys talking about? Lord Sutherland. And they got this story. They're going past, they stop, get off. Anyway, here's Chrissy Sutherland and Alicia Nelson from the Gun Clan. Oh boy. Part of my philosophy, worldview, part of my worldview is that different cultures are really a good idea. Each nation and each people group being themselves at their best is the best hope for the world. Now that's quite contrary to what has prevailed for the last 70 years, or the last 50 years, 40, depends how you want to count it. That I know what people say. Well, look, the last time we had nation states, they were all trying to kill each other as fast as they could, and I can understand that. That's so an immature response to that is. Therefore, we should not have nations. We should all be the same. Kumbaya, European Union, and globalism. And I think that's an immature, half-baked, and uncritical response to the issue. It is not nations who create wars. Nations do not, ergo, follow that we have national wars. That's a misreading of history. It's the quest for empire. It's selfishness and ambition and greed. That's what leads to war. Anyway, so I cheer for every people group, the Catalans, every people group that is agitating for its independence, its freedom. So I'm quite out of step with the political elite in my own country, of course. It doesn't create me much anxiety, being out of step with the in crowd. We had a president not too long ago who was fond of saying that he didn't want to be found on the wrong side of history. And I understand that impulse, and that's a good impulse. Tragically, the people on the wrong side of history throughout all of history end up being the cool cats, the dominator class, the people who can live unexamined values because they're in the catbird seat, because they're the dominators. They're the ones that invariably throughout all of history end up being the ones on the wrong side of history. Whereas the oppressed and the poor all the way through history end up being the ones the history sides with in long shot. So our dear president, who I liked very much, was hoping he'd be on the right side of history, was on the wrong side of history because he was one of the cool cats. He was one of the dominator class in our particular society. Hey, I'm still painting. Isn't that crazy? I can't believe I'm still going and jabbering. I can every once in a while, of course, somebody feels compelled to tell me, "Stick to painting. You're a good painter." You know, I'll stop talking about politics and religion. Well, I might sometimes. I don't. I usually try not to do too much. Honestly, I try not to do too much because I don't want people. You know, I don't want to do bait and switch. Well, supposedly he's doing art broadcast, but really he's being religious. Gag. I hope not. I truly hope not. But I've made some nice progress on her accidentally, haven't I? During all that time that I was jabbering. Ignore this. The brushwork on her face is much more pleasant than it was just a little while ago, I'm happy to say. And the values are much, much better. Well, Michael, don't encourage him. Somebody else is saying, don't encourage him. Shh. Just he'll just keep going. Okay. Don't worry. I won't take too much encouragement, but I appreciate the encouragement. I'll talk mostly about art. How about that? Mostly art. I do have a standard response to people like that say, you know, stick to what you're good at, whatever. Standard response is, listen, I have a master's degree in essentially philosophy and history. I am not a philosopher or historian because I have a degree. I have a degree in that because those are my proclivities. Or to put it more simply, I think I'm a philosopher who happens to paint, not a painter who happens to philosophize. Painting is something I do. I love it. I'm very blessed, thankful to be able to do it, but it's just something I do. It's not what I am. And my rants are actually, as you probably tell, closer to my heart than my painting. Although I'm immensely grateful to be able to make a living as an artist. Are you kidding? I'm very, very, very thankful and enjoy it very much. Just doing a little bit of brushy there, which is a really dangerous sound. Here, let me. I've told people many times over the years. Listen, I can recognize bad painting with my back turned. You want to hear it? Listen. Do you hear that? Here, I can do it this way. That's called bad painting, because it's brushy, brushy, brushy. Unless you're intentionally obfuscating texture. And I want most people to go, what? That's right. Unless you're intentionally obfuscating texture. Most people say, I don't believe I've ever done that in my whole life. Good. Okay, then that's how many times you should. That's how many times you should create that noise with your brush. Now, only when you're intentionally pushing back, diminishing texture. Otherwise, most of the time, our painting is one stroke. You slap it down and leave it. All right, I really am going to stop soon, I promise. But I've got a dark edge right here that needs to be gotten rid of. And then I hardly know what to do with her eyes. Because the photograph is so bad, I can hardly see her eyes. And she's got red eye, you know, pink eye. Flash from the flash. Even at this angle, isn't that crazy? Catching the, bending the light. But I know one thing I can do is I can make her eyelashes a little heavier. Of course, and that's a beauty factor, if you will. So you'd rather have it a little overdone than underdone. You'd rather have it perfect right on. But if you're going to fudge one way or the other, you'd rather fudge in the direction of too much eyelashes, not too little, right? So again, if you're gonna fudge one way or the other, which you are, because achieving absolute perfection of any single thing is, to speak overly technically, is impossible. You're not going to be perfect on anything. So you want to hedge your bet, so to speak, by going toward the beauty ideal, which is, of course, a little bit heavier in the eyelids, a little bit larger eyes, a little bit whiter whites, but just a little bit, right? Again, one of the most common mistakes that people make is the whites of the eyes and make them too white. I've said that enough times in the last week to sink ship. That's a funny mixture of metaphors, isn't it? Something is not right with her mouth. That irritates me. Well, it's got a little upturn now back here, which it does not have in real life. So turn it down and see if that's better, and that is better. But now I've lost the little crease right there at the corner of her mouth. So I've repainted the crease, and what does that mean? That means next I have to paint the light flesh around the crease. Otherwise it just looks like a stroke of dark paint on her face. Been saying that all day today, repeatedly. I hope somebody's watching who needs to hear that. A shorthand way of saying that same thing is you create creases and texture in faces by the use of light paint, not dark. It's a shorthand way of saying it. Of course, it's light and dark, but you achieve the final look of creases or wrinkles, whichever it may be. Not saying that Sally has wrinkles. Me either. I don't have wrinkles either. One of the most shocking things that happens to me, people my age, is we pick up our camera, our phone, to take a picture of something, and we turn our camera on, and it's accidentally got the camera that's pointed back at yourself, and all of a sudden you get this you know, sudden, shocking, photorealistic picture of yourself, and it's always jarring. You say, "Egads, am I that old?" Yes, you are, my dear. Oh, I mean, I'm not talking, it sounded like I was talking to a woman there. Talking to myself. Yes, you are, sir. You know what? I don't. Now that I've gotten this far, though, I'm afraid that her nose is too short. I'm afraid that her whole face is too short, and I'm afraid that I'm right. The distance from here to here is not long enough. Everything from here down is acceptable. I'm looking for a piece of paper. Everything from here up is acceptable, and everything from here down is acceptable. The only problem is this is too close to that. Doggone it. Okay, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to go over to my computer. I'll do this after I quit broadcasting. I'm going to do the same trick I did a while ago. I'm going to print out a copy this big, trace it on acetate, and lay it down on top of this. But I think I can already see it. Her nose is long, not long. It's right here. That's where I lose the distance. Okay, so that's pretty distressing. That's a real bummer. Let me repeat to you, and I want to hear myself say it. Okay, try not, you know, suicide is not the best option. It's not quite as disastrous as it sounds. In fact, I'm going to do that without you guys watching. And I've done this a couple times already in the last couple weeks. Like, as I said, I feel like I'm quite happy with that, how that is rendered. Once you've, and I have to decide actually whether I want to go up or down. I think it's down though. I think I can bring that chin down. Anyway, but I'll double check with acetate. The good news is once you've happily rendered a feature, in this case I'll be moving a whole bunch of features, chin, lip, teeth, lip, creases, nose, no, the bottom of the nose, top of the nose, you know, all that. But the good news is it's not as hard as it sounds. That'll probably take me 30 or 40 minutes, which is a while, but it's not compared to how long I've already spent on this portrait. It's kind of a drop in the bucket, right? The reason is, and again, I have an episode last week called Moving Features, Moving a Feature. You start down here, you move, if you're moving this way, you start here and you move the first thing, then the second thing, next, then you move down one at a time in a very mechanical manner, very just copy it, just move it down, you know, 1/8 of an inch or whatever it ends up being. And you just copy what's right above it, below, and it turns out it's not as hard as it sounds. And again, her teeth are too white too, but that's an easy fix. Goodness, how many hours I've been broadcasting. This is ridiculous, but thank you guys for watching, all 6 of you, whoever that is. People come and go, as I know. You can only take so much of me. Whew, I can only take so much of you. It works both ways, buddy. All right, thanks for watching.